Chapter 75. The red lotus fire on Ji-dong's body had already subsided, but the temperature of the red lotus on his chest was still there. The flaming bar was still paying attention to the situation here. Hearing Ji-dong's question, the vermilion bird's eyes revealed a mournful expression. "It's my child that needs your help. Back then, when I gave birth to her, there was a solar eclipse and Inchi invaded, causing my child to be congenitally injured. I've worked hard for 3,000 years, but I still haven't been able to hatch her. Recently, I've already felt that her vitality is rapidly dissipating. If she can't hatch soon, she'll..." At this point, the vermilion bird's voice choked up in an extremely human-like manner. "I'm a fire divine beast, and all of my magic is the fire of extreme yang. However, if you want to draw out the Inchi in the egg, you need a flame of pure Yin attribute. However, there are very few creatures in the world that possess the Ding-Si dark spirit fire. Only the most powerful Fuhua series devil masters of your human race have a chance. I'm sealed here, so how can I leave here to search for it? Thank you, Her Majesty, for sending you here. You only need to use the Ding-Si dark spirit fire to absorb the Yin energy in my child's egg. Then, I'll have a way to hatch her and replenish her vitality. This is my last chance. I beg you, you must help me." 2 drops of red tears flowed out of the vermilion bird's eyes and turned into 2 balls of flames that quietly dissipated in the air. Ji-dong silently listened to her explanation and nodded. He suddenly raised his right hand, and rays of light shot out from the fiery red storage bracelet. The extreme yang essence, or the phoenix blood parasol tree core, the 3 drops of phoenix cornet blood, and the 9 phoenix feathers were all presented in front of him. Ji-dong said indifferently, "Take these things back." The vermilion bird was shocked. What are you doing? If you think it's too little, I can pay more. What do you want? Tell me. I'll do my best to satisfy you." Ji-dong shook his head. "I don't want anything. I'll help you save your child, but please take these things back. This is my only request." The vermilion bird stared blankly at Ji-dong. Why? The flaming bar's voice sounded at the same time. Ji-dong. Ji-dong's gaze suddenly became intense as he said, "Raging flame, I can't threaten a mother who is willing to give up everything to save her child." He almost shouted these words. The vermilion bird was stunned. The flaming bar also sank, and the air in the cave seemed to become oppressive. After a while, Raging Flame's faint voice rang out. "Ji-dong, I didn't think it through. Do as you say. Vermilion bird, I only ask you to send him out safely after he hatches your child." The red lotus disappeared, and the warm feeling in his chest disappeared. Ji-dong didn't regret it. He silently said in his heart, "I'm sorry, Flaming Bar. I know you're doing this for my own good, but this is my bottom line." Ever since he knew the Flaming Bar, this was the first time he had gone against the will of the Flaming Bar. However, after shouting out those words, the depression in his heart were completely unblocked. He felt incomparably happy. In his mind, he recalled his mother from his past life. Ji-dong's eyes became moist. No matter what kind of creature it was, maternal love was always the most selfless and the greatest. Large drops of flaming tears flowed from the vermilion bird's eyes. Ji-dong didn't take another look at those rare treasures. He arrived in front of the vermilion bird and said, "Let's start now." The vermilion bird gazed deeply at Ji-dong. She didn't say anything else. She turned around and soared into the dense parasol tree. Using her wings, she carefully dragged a golden red egg and slowly floated down to Ji-dong's side. Compared to the fire dragon's egg, this phoenix egg was much smaller. It was oval and only about 1 meter in diameter. Looking at the vermilion bird's treasured gaze, Ji-dong comforted her. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. I will definitely help you successfully hatch your child." The vermilion bird's voice was filled with gratitude as she said, "Thank you. Put your hand on my child's eggshell. The yin-yang fire is stored in your palm. You will feel the yin qi within it and guide it out. I think that the yin fire that has been nurtured in my child's body for thousands of years will only be beneficial to you. You only need to guide it carefully." Ji-dong nodded. He raised his left hand and slowly pressed it on the strange golden-red vermilion bird egg. The yin-yang whirlpool revolved, and the demonic power within his body was released. Above his head, the black and white yin-yang crown gradually turned pure black. The deep and gloomy Ding Si underworld Yin's spiritual fire gradually rose and spread along his arm to his palm. The dual radiance of sun and moon gloves on his palm was compressed and condensed at the high-grade fourth fire crystal crown. Just as Jidong's palm came into contact with the vermilion bird egg, he immediately felt a pulsating sensation coming from the bottom of his palm. The golden red egg also trembled slightly. The vermilion bird nervously stood in front of Jidong, its long tail feathers circling around Jidong and the vermilion bird egg. The surrounding temperature slowly rose, but it would not make Jidong feel the extreme heat. As the Ding Si underworld Yin's spiritual fire gathered in his palm, the vermilion bird egg began to tremble slightly. At first, it was almost indiscernible, but soon this trembling became obvious. A trace of black and gray aura gradually appeared on the surface of the vermilion bird egg and condensed towards Jidong's palm. An icy chill instantly pierced through his palm and went straight into Jidong's body. Jidong shuddered, and his face suddenly became somewhat pale. The yin-yang swirls in his chest quickly began to revolve, and the cold chill combined with the Ding Si underworld Yin's spiritual fire in his body, gradually transforming into his own strength. Black and gray threads, like silk, constantly appeared on the vermilion bird egg, and the chill that entered his body also began to become more and more obvious. At first, his yin-yang swirls could still quickly dissolve it and integrate it into his body, but very soon, Jidong found that he could not hold on any longer. The chill that came from the vermilion bird egg was very similar to his Ding Si underworld Yin's spiritual fire, but there was one difference. In the black and gray cold, in addition to the Yin fire, there was also a Yin evil chi. At first, because there was not much of it, it was immediately refined as soon as it entered the yin-yang swirls, turning into gray gas and dissipating in the air. However, as more and more Yin evil chi gushed out, Jidong's yin-yang swirls became somewhat unbalanced. Although the yin-yang swirls could exchange the two ultimate flames, that was on a certain basis. At this time, Jidong's Ding Si underworld Yin's spiritual fire was becoming more and more powerful and had completely overwhelmed the Bingwu primordial Yang sacred fire attribute in his body. Not only was it gradually unable to resist the Yin evil chi, but even his yin-yang swirls began to become sluggish, and there was a possibility that they would break at any time. His complexion gradually became ashen, but Jidong still clenched his teeth and held on. He could already feel the heartbeat in the center of the vermilion bird egg. For the sake of the mother who had been worried about his child for 3,000 years, he must hold on. The vermilion bird also discovered that Jidong's situation was not good. In great shock, her eyes emitted light, and she let out a long sigh, saying, "Human friend, you have a heart full of light and passion. As a Bingwu divine beast, the evil chi that deterred the world, from you, I see the hope and future of the Bingwu. For the sake of my child, and for the sake of your gold-like heart, what else can I not give up? I know what the Empress of the Flaming Bar wants to do, so let me complete all of this perfectly." A golden ripple slowly spread out from the vermilion bird's head, and her fiery red feathers gradually turned the golden color of the Bingwu primordial Yang sacred fire. Her huge wings slowly unfurled, and golden phoenix feathers quietly fell from her body, dancing lightly in the air. All the Yang essence, or on the walls of the cave, lit up, and the golden feathers floated into the air, revolving around Jidong and the vermilion bird egg. A low and mellow phoenix cry sounded from the vermilion bird's mouth, and a golden red line of fire swept up the items that Jidong had previously thrown on the ground. The first was the piece of Yang essence, or that glowed with a golden light. This piece of Yang essence, or was the most precious part of the entire vermilion bird cave. The vermilion bird had only taken it out to save her child because she knew that she could not deceive the Empress of the Flaming Bar. A golden flame shot out from the vermilion bird's mouth and landed on the Yang essence, or immediately, all the golden light spots in the red crystal or lit up, resonating with the Bingwu primordial yang, sacred fire outside. The red crystal or gradually softened and melted. Although the flaming bar could also activate the Bingwu primordial yang, sacred fire, and the Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire, the Empress did not use the seeds left behind by the two sovereigns, and the seeds of the two ultimate flames could not possibly recognize her as an enemy. Therefore, her fire source was the red lotus fire. Although it was very powerful, it did not share the same origin as Jidong's fire. The Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire that the vermilion bird spat out now was the purest yang sacred fire in the world. As a 10th level divine beast, the Empress Yang sacred fire was many times more powerful than Jidong's. Even the Yang essence, or which was the strongest fire attribute or in the world, would gradually melt in front of his Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire. The second thing that flew up was the Phoenix blood parasol tree's tree core. The Phoenix blood parasol tree was tainted with the aura of the fire phoenix and the vermilion bird. After 10,000 years, it gradually grew. Not only was it a pure yang wood, but because it was the habitat of the phoenix, it was also known as the mother of the phoenix. Its tree core was filled with unparalleled yang vitality and the vermilion bird's soul power. It would only grow an inch every 1,000 years, so the foot-long tree core needed 10,000 years to grow. It was a true treasure of heaven and earth, a treasure of yang. The Phoenix blood parasol tree's tree core floated in the air. The vermilion bird let out a low phoenix cry, and a ray of golden light shot out from its mouth. With a poof, the tree core instantly vaporized and turned into a thick golden red mist, fusing with the yang essence, or that had melted into a golden red liquid. The vermilion bird's eyes lit up. The entire cavern had already turned completely golden. 3 drops of phoenix coronet blood flew into the air. The first drop drew an arc in the air, directly entering Jidong's mouth. Jidong had no idea what was happening in the outside world. His body was trembling violently, and his skin had completely turned grayish-white. The yin qi in the vermilion bird's egg was much more powerful than he had imagined. In fact, if the yin qi from the solar eclipse had not been too strong, the vermilion bird would have been able to expel it. The yin-yang vortex in his chest had already solidified, but Jidong's Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire had become stronger and stronger. The extremely cold aura was rapidly devouring his consciousness. If his body had not been soaked in dragon blood, he would not have been able to withstand it. At this moment, a warm liquid flowed into his body from his mouth. The intense heat flowed all the way to his yin-yang vortex. Immediately, a wisp of yang qi slowly rose in the boundless cold aura, protecting the last bit of warmth in Jidong's heart. At the same time, this yang qi quietly spread, and the yin-yang vortex that had solidified in Jidong's body began to regain its vitality. The vermilion bird heaved a sigh of relief. If she had acted a little later, Jidong would have been completely devoured by the yin qi. When the solar eclipse yin qi in the vermilion bird's egg was released, she finally understood how powerful the yin qi was. My poor child, you've endured too much pain for the past 3,000 years. Don't worry, I'll definitely hatch you successfully with this human friend. To the vermilion bird, Jidong was now a bridge that could release the yin qi in the vermilion bird's egg. She had to protect Jidong for both official and personal reasons. It was not only because he could save her child, but also because of the passion in this young man's heart. The golden phoenix feathers floating in the air slowly gathered together. Phoenix feathers kept flying above the vermilion bird's head, passing through the liquid form from the melted yang essence or in the Phoenix blood parasol wood's tree core. After fusing with the Phoenix blood parasol wood's tree core, the original golden red liquid changed slightly. It gained a tremendous life force and the vermilion bird's own aura. Each golden feather that swept past, it would take away a drop of liquid. In the blink of an eye, the liquid had been divided by a large number of phoenix feathers. With a puff, the vermilion bird Hyoheim blew. Instantly, his clothes turned into ashes, and the phoenix feathers flew towards Ji-dong's body with the strange liquid. At the same time, the remaining 2 drops of phoenix coronet blood suddenly dispersed in the air, transforming into a blood mist that floated in the air and enveloped every part of Ji-dong's body. Although it was very thin, it had completely fused into his skin. The blazing hot air shook Ji-dong's mind, and the cold yin-chi in his body was immediately suppressed. The yin-yang vortex in his chest had already started spinning again, and the 3 drops of phoenix coronet blood's extreme yang aura collided violently with the extreme yin aura from the vermilion bird's egg. A terrifying demonic power constantly surged in Ji-dong's body. The yin-chi tried to destroy it, but the phoenix coronet blood's yang chi protected him. The battle between them instantly reached a white-hot degree. Chapter 76. At this moment, the first golden phoenix feather pierced into Ji-dong's body, and the tip of the sharp armor pierced half an inch into the center of Ji-dong's chest with a drop of golden red liquid. A scorching heat caused Ji-dong's body to tremble violently, but the yang chi in his body had clearly become stronger. The yin-yang vortex spun and immediately refined a trace of evil yin. Immediately after, the phoenix feathers surged from all directions and surrounded Ji-dong's body. Only 1 phoenix feather pierced out each time, but they were connected extremely quickly. Every phoenix feather that pierced into the surface of Ji-dong's skin would leave a faint mark, but his skin would quickly return to normal. In the beginning, Ji-dong could still feel a piercing pain, but he was soon immersed in the pure yang demonic power that was filled with the vital energy of heaven and earth and a huge amount of vitality. Originally, a huge amount of evil yin-chi and Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire had accumulated in Ji-dong's body, but with the injection of the vermilion bird's 3rd meridian primordial yang sacred fire and a huge amount of vitality, Ji-dong's consciousness gradually awakened. He touched the vermilion bird's egg more steadily and continued to draw the yin-chi in it. The golden phoenix feathers kept poking Ji-dong's body, and a layer of golden red light could be vaguely seen flowing under Ji-dong's skin. The power of the 3rd meridian primordial yang sacred fire collided with the Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire in Ji-dong's body that had been enshrouded in the vermilion bird's egg for 3,000 years, and a strange change occurred on the surface of Ji-dong's skin. Even the vermilion bird was unaware of this change. There was a limit to Ji-dong's yin-yang vortex. The excessive influx of Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire had almost caused his body to explode, but now, the change was that the Dingxi netherworld spiritual fire was attracted by the phoenix feathers and condensed under his skin, which solved a big problem for Ji-dong. Time passed second by second. In the sky, streaks of golden light kept poking Ji-dong's body before retreating. When all the juice in the air had entered his body, every part of Ji-dong's body had been pierced by the phoenix feathers, and a layer of strange luster appeared on his skin. At first, it was golden red, but as the 2 extreme demonic powers collided and fused with each other, the light flowing under the surface of his skin turned into a gentle white. 2 huge white wings also appeared on Ji-dong's back. These wings were hidden under the skin on his back, and they looked extremely fine. They actually looked exactly the same as the vermilion bird's wings. You could call them tattoos, but there were no traces of pinholes at all, and Ji-dong's not-so-broad back added a touch of fantasy. All the golden phoenix feathers flew back to the vermilion bird's body and fused with her once again. The 3rd meridian primordial yang, sacred fire, and the life force of the tree core on the phoenix feathers allowed these phoenix feathers to become a part of the vermilion bird's body again. On the golden-red vermilion bird's egg, the last trace of black and gray energy was finally absorbed into Ji-dong's body. The rotation of the yin-yang whirlpool slowed down, and Ji-dong felt as if his entire body was about to collapse. Fortunately, after absorbing the last trace of evil yin energy, the 2 kinds of demonic powers in his body had reached a balance. The divine yin-yang lock technique was activated, and Ji-dong controlled the demonic power in the yin-yang whirlpool to return to normal. The 2-colored yin-yang crown above his head reappeared, and at this time, the yin-yang crown underwent a change. Originally, there was only half a star on the crown, But at this time, the number of stars on the crown increased rapidly, as if it had taken stimulants. From half a star to 1, then to 2, 3, 4, 5. In the blink of an eye, the black and white yin-yang crown was already covered with 5 golden and black stars. The yin-yang whirlpool in Jidong's chest had also been completely filled with the demonic power formed by the 2-colored liquid. 30th level, Jidong couldn't see the yin-yang crown, but he could clearly feel the changes in the demonic power in his chest. Previously, he had been working hard to urge the yin-yang whirlpool to dissolve the external demonic power, so he didn't feel too much. At this time, he discovered that in the process of the 2 demonic powers fighting, his own demonic power had unexpectedly increased. From a 21st to the 30th level, it was a total of 9 levels. As long as he broke through the barrier of 3 crowns, he could become a dual attribute master magician. Jidong was still a month away from the age of 15. To achieve 3 crowns at this age, moreover in such a short period of time, it could be said to be unprecedented in the magician world. Vermilion Bird looked at the white wing tattoo that appeared on Jidong's back and was slightly sluggish for a moment. Why was it white? She didn't understand, but at this time, she didn't have the mind to pay attention to this. Her eyes then fell on the vermilion bird egg, and her eyes were full of hope. The yin aura that had been stored for 3,000 years had finally been drawn out. To be precise, it had been drawn into Jidong's body. If her child still couldn't hatch, then it could only mean that this vermilion bird egg would never be able to hatch. Jidong fell to the ground, exhausted. He glanced at his naked body and helplessly shook his head. From his storage magic tool that had evolved into the vermilion bird bracelet, he took out a set of clean clothes and put them on. Only then did his breathing become a bit more even. Although his demonic power had increased, his body was too tired. Especially on his skin, there seemed to always be a kind of cold and hot feeling, which made him somewhat uncomfortable. What Jidong couldn't see was that his eyes had turned into a deep black and a wild gold. Even if he didn't urge his demonic power, there wouldn't be any changes. Reluctantly climbing up from the ground, Jidong looked at Vermilion Bird and said, "Don't worry, your child will definitely be born successfully." Just now, I could feel its heartbeat. Vermilion Bird Hyoheim nodded, and her eyes revealed gratitude. She said, "I also didn't expect that there would be such a huge amount of yin fire in my child's body. I almost made a big mistake and harmed you. No matter what the result is, you are my friend forever." Jidong's expression didn't change, and he didn't say anything. He just silently prayed for the little vermilion bird in the vermilion bird egg. If it couldn't hatch successfully, then everything he had done would have been in vain. He didn't know that in order to help him resist the huge amount of yin fire, the vermilion bird had already used all the previous materials except for the 9 phoenix feathers. Moreover, it had also added the vermilion bird's own true fire. The vermilion bird naturally wouldn't tell him, although it was the same thing in the vermilion bird's heart. A gift and a transaction were 2 completely different concepts. Earth's core lake. The flaming bar silently watched all of this through the light and shadow in front of her. What Jidong couldn't see, she could see. A strange light appeared in her black eyes, and her slender fingers, like a spring onion, gently combed her long hair. She softly sighed. "Jidong, you're right. You know, I like your unyielding determination. You're already an indomitable man." As she said this, the corners of her mouth revealed a knowing smile. Before today, perhaps in her subconscious mind, she had always regarded Jidong as a child. But after everything that had just happened, she truly understood that Jidong was already a real man. The Vermilion Bird's cave. "Kacha!" A slight cracking sound broke the peace of the cave. Jidong and the Vermilion Bird's eyes focused at almost the same time. On the golden-red Vermilion Bird egg, a slight crack appeared. The Vermilion Bird's eyes suddenly revealed an uncontrollable ecstasy. The feathers on her body trembled slightly, showing how agitated she was at this moment. "Kacha!" Another soft sound rang out, followed closely by a continuous series of cracking sounds. Traces of golden-red light emitted from the inside of the Vermilion Bird egg, and the Bing fire elements in the air once again became stronger. With a poochie sound, The vermilion bird's egg shook, and a hole appeared in the middle of the eggshell. A small golden-red head emerged from inside. The wet phoenix crown was still tilted, and the phoenix feathers were stuck to its neck. It looked somewhat comical no matter how one looked at it. Only the pair of quick-witted red eyes looked very similar to the vermilion bird's. A resonant phoenix cry suddenly rang out from the vermilion bird's mouth. That phoenix cry was filled with joy and joy. After 3,000 years of incubation and 3,000 years of prayer, her child was finally born. Gigi, the little vermilion bird, shook its head and called out to Jidong. The eggshell on its body gradually broke, and a faint layer of golden red light spread out from its feathers. The wetness on its body gradually disappeared, and the eggshell, under the effect of the golden red light, turned into a stream of air and was sucked into its stomach. Finally, all the eggshell disappeared, and the tail feathers on the little vermilion bird's back were not very strong. It raised its head, and the phoenix crown on its head was already erected. Although it had just been born, it was already a 6th-rank magical beast. The vermilion bird suddenly rushed forward, opened her wings, and hugged her child. A sad, beautiful, and joyful phoenix cry constantly sounded from her mouth. Feeling the warmth of its mother, the little vermilion bird also constantly called out softly. Jidong's eyes became moist again. Looking at the warmth of their embrace, no matter how much pain he had suffered, he felt that it was worth it. At this time, the corners of Jidong's mouth finally revealed a knowing smile. At this time, a low muffled sound came from outside, and the mountain seemed to tremble slightly. The vermilion bird suddenly raised its head, and the gentleness in its eyes immediately turned into a cold light. She said, "Someone has intruded into my territory again. Human friend, wait here for a moment. I'll go destroy the intruder, and then come back to thank you." Jidong's heart stirred, and he said, "I'll go with you. It's possible that my companion is looking for me. Previously, I was sent here by the enemy's magic technique." Previously, he had heard the thunder in the sky not far away. If it was his senior brother, the Thunder Emperor, who had come, wouldn't it be dangerous to fight with the vermilion bird? The vermilion bird nodded, and a warm red light wrapped around Jidong's body. Although the vermilion bird's body was not as big as a dragon's, sitting on Jidong was not a problem. At the same time, she did not forget to release a red ball of light, which enveloped her child. Only then did she soar into the sky, and quickly flew out with her slender phoenix feathers. Jidong only felt the red light flash past him, and in the blink of an eye, the surroundings brightened. The vermilion bird had already flown out of the cave with him. The vermilion bird's flying speed was too fast, and it gave him the feeling that it had traveled through time and space. As soon as they left the cave, the vermilion bird immediately emitted a layer of dazzling red light, which completely enveloped Jidong's body. At the same time, there was a suction force, and he was firmly attached to the vermilion bird's back. In the sky, lightning flashed, and the purple thunder brilliant sky dragon was letting out a proud roar. The Thunder Emperor's tyrannical voice echoed in the sky. "Bastard, come at me. If you have the ability, come at me again. Why aren't you coming, coward?" A loud and clear phoenix cry resounded in the sky, and the purple thunder brilliant sky dragon's proud voice came to an abrupt halt. With a flash of red light, the vermilion bird was already high up in the sky, and its sharp voice echoed in the sky. "A puny 8th-rank dragon dares to enter my territory? Are you courting death?" What was the strength of a rank 10 mythological beast? Jidong immediately saw it. Before he could say anything, the entire sky instantly turned red. Although he was sitting on a vermilion bird's back and couldn't feel the vermilion bird's magic power, he could clearly see that there was only one color left in the sky and on the ground. The lightning around the purple thunder brilliant sky dragon's body seemed to have been completely suppressed back into its body, and even a huge vortex of fire elements had appeared in the sky. A mythological beast, even with the Thunder Emperor's arrogance, he couldn't help but cry out. Jidong had immediately charged into the core of the Earth Spirit Mountain range on the purple thunder brilliant sky dragon. However, as soon as he entered, he was met with a powerful attack. The powerful magical beasts in the core of the Earth Spirit Mountain range constantly blocked his path. Fury and the Purple Thunder Brilliant Sky Dragon worked together to kill a few Class 7 magical beasts before approaching. Just before, he had encountered a powerful Class 9 magical beast. After fighting for a long time, the thunder that Ji Dong heard was the sound of his battle with the Class 9 magical beast. Even with the Purple Thunder Brilliant Sky Dragon and the Thunder Emperor working together, they could only fight the Class 9 magical beast to a standstill. As the battle gradually changed locations, the Class 9 magical beast suddenly fled as if it was afraid of them. Just when the Thunder Emperor was feeling great, he discovered that the space seemed to have frozen. The fiery red vermilion bird soared into the sky, instantly taking control of the entire space. Fury finally understood why the Class 9 magical beast had fled in such a panic. He had never thought that there would be a Class 10 divine beast in the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Class 9 was still a magical beast, but Class 10 was a divine beast. When he saw that it was the vermilion bird, his heart could not help but sink. The vermilion bird was one of the heavenly stem divine beasts, as well as the most powerful divine beast in the world. Even other Class 10 divine beasts were not its opponent. Just when the Thunder Emperor furrowed his brows and was about to fight to the death, a familiar voice suddenly rang out from the vermilion bird's back. Vermilion bird, don't do anything. My senior has come to find me. Chapter 77. The red in the sky receded like the tide. The Thunder Emperor looked over and saw that the person sitting on the back of the level 10 heavenly stem divine beast, the vermilion bird, was none other than his junior, Ji Dong. Although the danger had disappeared, he could not help but be dumbfounded. He rubbed his eyes forcefully, but he still could not believe what had happened in front of him. Ji Dong, Lon Bauer, who was also sitting on the back of the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon, had already woken up from her coma. She waved a Hyoheim excitedly. As the saying goes, newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. Lon Bauer did not recognize that the Thunder Emperor was the fire divine beast, the vermilion bird. In her heart, the Thunder Emperor had already become an invincible existence. She did not need to fear any enemy. In the process of entering the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountain range, she had already seen too many powerful magical beasts killed by the Thunder Emperor's Thunder Axe. Ji Dong also waved at Lon Bauer and said to the vermilion bird at the same time, "My senior has come to find me. Your child has successfully hatched, so it's time for me to go. It's nice to meet you. You are a respectable mother." The vermilion bird's gentle voice rang out. "You are also a respectable human. I have yet to thank you." Ji Dong smiled and said, "I don't need any thanks. Take good care of your child." The vermilion bird turned to look at Hyoheim, as if it wanted to firmly remember his appearance in its heart. 9 shining tail feathers drifted out of the cave and landed in front of Ji Dong. "Your name is Ji Dong. I will always remember it. Your name is Ji Dong. I will always remember it. Don't reject me. These 9 feathers are for you as a souvenir. Friend, I believe that one day we will meet again. If I were to go back 3,000 years and I still don't have a child, I would definitely choose you as my contracted partner. However, you have inherited 2 sovereign flames, so my attributes are not completely suitable for you. I believe that you will definitely find a better mount in the future. Goodbye, friend. You will always be Vermilion Bird's friend." This time, Ji Dong did not reject it. He put the 9 phoenix feathers into his vermilion bird bracelet. An intense red light carried his body into the air, and he flew in the direction of the Purple Thunder Brilliant Sky Dragon. Even now, the Purple Thunder Brilliant Sky Dragon was still roaring uneasily, and there was a hint of fear in its eyes as it looked at the divine bird that was surrounded by flames. Although the vermilion bird's display of might had only lasted for a short period of time, it was enough to intimidate this rank 8 giant dragon. Ji Dong landed in front of the Thunder Emperor. The vermilion bird's voice rang out, "Thunder, since you are my friends, Ji Dong, I will let you go of trespassing on my territory. Dong, Ji, I will. Dragon, thunder, from of thunder. Emperor of fire. Dragon from God, dragon, Emperor and Thunder. Dragon 2. Dragon. Ji-dong landed in front of the Thunder Emperor. Fury hurriedly took him and let him sit at the front of the dragon saddle with Lon Bao. Waving at the vermilion bird, Ji-dong said loudly, "Go back. Your child is waiting for you. She is still weak. She needs your care." Vermilion bird Hyoheim nodded. She turned into a ray of red light and returned to the cave. When she reached the entrance of the cave, she stopped again. She turned back to look at Ji-dong, who was on the purple thunder heavenly dragon. Then, she disappeared into the cave. It wasn't until the moment the vermilion bird disappeared that Fury felt the pressure around him disappear. Although he wasn't afraid and had the courage to face any enemy, it was impossible for him to not be nervous when facing one of the divine beasts, the vermilion bird. "Little junior brother, it seems like you have profited from your misfortune." Fury chuckled. Even now, he still could not believe what he had just seen. Lon Bao turned around and said, "Ji-dong, are you all right?" Ji-dong shook his head and said, "Senior brother, do we still need to continue with the preliminary test?" Fury laughed and said, "What's there to continue?" Although there weren't many practical tests, it was much better than hunting magical beasts. Moreover, your rewards should have long surpassed the requirements of the preliminary test. Let's leave this place first. It's not easy to survive in the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountains. Little junior brother, you still need me to explain a lot to you. Ji-dong had helped the vermilion bird successfully hatch her child and was in a good mood. He chuckled and said, "Don't worry, senior brother. No matter what questions you have, I will answer them one by one after we leave this place." Disregarding everything else, the fact that the Thunder Emperor had come to their rescue despite knowing the dangers of the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountains was enough for Ji-dong to decide not to hide anything from him. Of course, that was excluding the matter regarding the flaming bar. His right hand brought with it a bolt of lightning that seemed to tear space apart. Fury kept his thunder battle axe and grabbed Ji-dong and Lon Bao with both hands. He dismounted from the dragon's saddle and placed the two of them on the saddle one after the other. Then, he sat behind them and gently patted the purple thunder heavenly dragon. The purple thunder heavenly dragon was not willing to stay in such a stressful place any longer. It flapped its wings and instantly increased its speed. It flew into the distance like a bolt of purple lightning. As he sat with Lon Bao once again, Ji-dong naturally hugged her waist. This time, Lon Bao's body was no longer as stiff as before. Instead, she took the initiative to lean against Ji-dong's chest. Fury had already told her what had happened after she had fainted during the battle. Although the preliminary examination had only lasted for a few days, her understanding of Ji-dong had undergone a drastic change. Very soon, the Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon had brought them out of the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountains. Fury's expression also relaxed. He patted Ji-dong's shoulder and said, "Little junior brother, what I want to know the most now is where did you get those extreme flames of yours?" Ji-dong smiled and said, "If I told you that I was born with them, would you believe me?" Fury nodded and said with a smile, "I believe you. Because other than this, I really can't think of another explanation. No wonder you were able to condense the yin-yang crown under the condition that your yin and yang are in balance. In this preliminary examination, you have definitely created the history of our Heavenly STEM Academy and even the yin-yang school." Ji-dong said, "Compared to senior brother, I'm still far from you." Fury said, "The difference between us is limited by age. I believe that when you reach my age, you will definitely surpass me. Moreover, my strength is still not enough." That was the divine beast vermilion bird just now, right? I have always prided myself on my strength, but when facing this divine beast being fire, I have a feeling that I am unable to compete with it. No wonder teacher has repeatedly warned me not to enter the core region of the Earth Spirit Mountains. It turns out that there is actually a heavenly STEM divine beast guarding there. Ji-dong asked, "Senior brother, why do you call the vermilion bird the heavenly STEM divine beast?" Fury said, "The 10 great demon masters are also called the 10 heavenly STEM demon masters. Each of the 10 great demon masters has its own totem. These totems are not illusory, they really exist. They're called the totem divine beasts or heavenly stem divine beasts. Legend has it that the 10 great heavenly stem divine beasts are guarding the 10 corners of the continent, protecting our land. It is also because of their existence that there is only one passage between the 5 great light continent and the 5 dark continent. Once someone tries to cross the sea, then the heavenly stem divine beasts will release their seals and attack the enemy together. This is also another reason why no one on the 2 continents has ever tried to cross the sea with countless sea beasts. It seems that this is really not as simple as the legend. Didn't we just see one of the 10 great heavenly stem divine beasts today? Little junior brother, did you get directly transported to the vermilion bird by that earth element guy? Ji Dong smiled bitterly and said, "That's not it, but it's almost there. I just happened to appear outside the vermilion bird's cave." He briefly explained the process of how he got to know the vermilion bird, leaving out the existence of the flaming bar and the negotiation with the vermilion bird. He only said that the vermilion bird found out that he had the Ding Si dark spiritual fire and asked him to help her hatch her child. After listening to Ji Dong's words, Fury said, "No wonder. I was wondering why the vermilion bird would call you a friend and treat you so well. Little junior brother, this is really a blessing in disguise. It's a pity, it's really a pity." Lon Bauer, who had been silent all this while, turned her head and asked, "Senior brother Fury, what's a pity?" Fury said, "Bauer, you don't know this, but the more powerful the demonic beast, especially the divine beast, the more important it is to karma. This time, the vermilion bird can be said to have received a great favor from little junior brother, and she will definitely repay it. If she is willing to sign a contract with little junior brother and become little junior brother's mount, how many people in this world can be little junior brother's opponent? It's such a pity. If only little junior brother met it a few years later, when little junior brother has cultivated to the 6 crowns realm." Ji Dong smiled and shook his head. He said, "Senior brother, you're thinking too much. I'm just helping a poor mother. I don't expect her to repay me. In order to hatch the child, she has waited for 3,000 years. What a great mother's love." It would be a lie to say that he was not envious of Fury's mount, the purple thunder heaven dragon. However, he had never thought of using his help to help the vermilion bird to obtain such a mount. It was not a matter of attributes, but his mentality. The happiness of the little vermilion bird when it was born was the best reward for him. With the purple thunder heaven dragon flying at full speed, they quickly covered the distance of 500 miles. In the distance, they could already see the majestic first city of the mainland, the Central Plains City. The purple thunder heaven dragon folded its wings and landed 50 miles away from the Central Plains City with the 3 of them. Jumping off the dragon's back, Fury did not rush back to the main city with the 2 of them. Instead, he sat down where he was. "Senior brother, do you want to rest for a while?" Ji Dong asked. Fury Rue laughed and said, "I'm not that weak. I was so busy looking for you that I didn't have time to count your spoils of war. It's time to sit down and divide the spoils. Don't you want to see how big the harvest this time is?" Ji Dong and Lon Bauer looked at each other and couldn't help but smile. The process was arduous and dangerous, but the harvest this time was equally huge. Thinking about the scene of the colorful lights flying in the sky, Ji Dong understood that they had most likely made a fortune this time. As he spoke, Fury raised his left hand. On his left index finger was a huge sapphire ring. He shook it with force, and a circle of numbing lightning power quietly spread out. With a whoosh, colorful lights scattered in all directions. Under the dumbfounded gazes of Ji Dong and Lon Bauer, the crystal cores of various colors had already piled up in front of them like a small mountain. This was also the Thunder Emperor Fury who dared to do such a thing on the side of the road. In his heart, there was no concept of not showing off one's wealth. "Oh my God, so many!" Lon Bauer exclaimed in a low voice. Fury smiled and said, "I want to help you count the number so that I can confirm your final results in this preliminary test. Come and help me. Let's first separate these crystal cores according to their attributes." All right. Ji Dong and Lon Bauer took out the crystal cores that they had obtained from killing the middle-aged man of the gung metal element and counted them together. The three of them excitedly sat in a circle and really became a real sharing of the spoils. It was very easy to distinguish the crystal cores. The color of the crystal core was the same as the magic power of the 10 elemental demon masters. According to the order of first wood, second wood, third fire, fourth fire, fifth earth, sixth earth, gung metal, octane metal, ninth water, and 10th water, the colors were green, dark green, red, blue, yellow, gray, white, gold, black, and purple. Through these colors, the attributes of the crystal core could be distinguished. Then, according to the difference in size and color, they could be divided into different grades. There were simply too many crystal cores. The 5 demon masters that were killed all had a large number of crystal cores on them, especially the yellow-clothed man that was struck to death by the Thunder Emperor's lightning. Just him alone had more than 150 crystal cores on him. Very soon, the division of the crystal cores was completed. Other than the crystal cores, there were also 2 demon skill scrolls. Fury did not know much about these things, so he decided to let his teacher identify them when he got back. The 3 of them counted the crystal cores of each attribute. When they raised their heads and looked at each other, they were a little speechless. Even though the majority of the crystal cores were of the 2nd or 3rd rank, there was a large number of them. Furthermore, there were all 10 elements. Little junior brother, Bauer, you're going to be rich now. This batch of crystal cores is worth at least 500,000 gold coins. If I'm not wrong, those people have been in the Earth Spirit Mountain range for a long time. It's not like they could have accumulated so many crystal cores in one go. Most of them are of the earth element, especially the earth element. These are all valuable goods. There are even 2 5th rank crystal cores for the earth element. There are no 5th rank crystal cores for the other attributes. There are about 34th rank crystal cores, and the rest are 2nd and 3rd rank. Adding them all up, there are 372 crystal cores in total. You guys can be considered to have completed the task double. All right, quickly put them away. When we get back, I'll let my teacher identify the scrolls before giving them to you. Lon Bauer silently picked up the 10th water element crystal core and put it into her storage magic tool. She did not move anymore, and her face was calm. Ji Dong said doubtfully, Bauer, continue taking them. We agreed that apart from the ones of each attribute, we would split the spoils of war equally. Chapter 78. Lon Bauer shook her head and said, Ji Dong, if it wasn't for you this time, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to complete the preliminary exam. You risked your life to get these spoils. I have taken enough. There are more than 40 crystal nuclei of the 10th water element. You can keep the rest. Ji Dong said sternly, I'm not the only one who risked my life, but the 2 of us. We are partners. When facing the enemy, if there is no you, I will not be able to defeat the opponent in the end. I will only take half. If you insist on not taking it, then throw it away. After saying that, he put away the crystal nuclei of the 3rd fire and 4th fire elements, and only took half of the other crystal nuclei. He stood up and turned to leave. Ji Dong, Lon Bauer hurriedly pulled his sleeve and looked at Fury for help. Fury smiled and said, Bauer, you don't have to be polite with him. Can't you see that my junior is very stubborn? Although these magical beast crystal nuclei are worth a lot of money, they're not precious. You can keep them. Let's go. Let's go into the city. I will treat you to a big meal to celebrate the successful completion of this preliminary exam. In desperation, Lon Bauer had to put away the remaining crystal nuclei, and the 3 of them went in the direction of the Central Plains City. The Central Plains City was still so lively. Although it was not the first time he saw the city from the outside, when he looked at it, Ji Dong still felt shocked. At this time, the sky was gradually getting dark. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the city, rendering it with a layer of golden brilliance. As soon as they entered the city, Fury took the 2 people into the city with ease. After passing through a few streets, they entered one of the 10 main roads of the Central Plains City. The 10 main roads of the Central Plains City were named according to the 10 elements of magic. The palace was located in the middle of the Qingtu Avenue. At this time, Fury took them on the Binghua Avenue. These main roads were extremely wide. Even if 10 carriages were abreast, they would not feel crowded. As soon as they set foot on this main road, Jidong immediately smelled a strong aroma. It was the smell of barbecue. Fury laughed and said, "This is the place. I'll treat you to some barbecued meat. This is the place I usually come to." Jidong followed Wei Rui's gaze. On the left side of Two Fires Avenue, a large restaurant came into view. The restaurant only had 3 floors, but each floor was more than 5 meters tall. Even though it was surrounded by tall buildings on both sides of the main road, it was still very easy to recognize. This was because it was fiery red in color, which was different from most of the earth and yellow buildings. Fury brought Jidong and Lan Bauer into the restaurant. Without waiting for the waiter to lead them, they found a table in the hall on the first floor and sat down. He shouted loudly, "Special barbecued meat. Give me 10 skewers and 3 liters of high alcohol. Hurry, hurry." The Thunder Monarch's personality was like his magic, fiery and impatient. "Sir, please wait a moment. We'll be back in a while." Hearing the waiter's reply, Fury then smiled at Hyoheim and Lan Bauer, saying, "The barbecued meat here is the best in the Central Plain City. It's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. Most importantly, it's big enough to eat. Barbecued meat needs to be paired with high alcohol content. Only then will it be satisfying to eat. Bauer, do you want to eat something else?" Lan Bauer smiled slightly, shook her head, and said, "I'll just eat the same as Senior." After a while, the waiter brought over a huge tray with soil. There were indeed 10 skewers of barbecued meat on the tray. However, the barbecued meat was really big. Each skewer was 1 meter long, and there were 10 pieces of golden, oily barbecued meat on them. The strong aroma of the barbecued meat wafted over, whetting one's appetite. Fury grabbed a skewer and said, "Come, have a taste. This is top-notch lamb meat. It's extremely tender and won't get stuck in your teeth. Waiter, hurry up with the alcohol." A liter and a large glass of alcohol was brought over. Fury attended to Jidong and Lan Bauer, while he himself started to eat. His table manners were just like him, rough and wild. Jidong also grabbed a skewer and put a large piece of barbecued meat into his mouth. Instantly, his mouth was filled with the aroma. When he bit down on the piping hot barbecued meat, the rich gravy instantly filled his mouth. Fury wasn't exaggerating at all. It was definitely crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. Having lived for 2 lifetimes, Jidong had never eaten such tasty barbecued meat. Just like what Fury said, eating such a big skewer of barbecued meat was satisfying. After eating dry rations for a few days, Jidong's stomach was already complaining. At this time, he didn't hold back and ate with big mouthfuls, as if he wanted to compete with Fury to see who could eat faster. The alcohol was a rich amber color and wasn't transparent. After drinking it in one gulp, the cold and rich aroma of the wheat flowed freely into his throat. Jidong had a deep understanding of alcohol, so he immediately understood that the high level Fury was talking about was the high concentration of malt and not the alcohol content. This kind of alcohol was truly liquid bread. Drinking in big mouthfuls and eating big pieces of meat, this kind of vivid and unrestrained feeling made Jidong exclaim in satisfaction. He thought to himself that he must remember this place and come back often in the future. The 10-meter-long skewers added up to 5 caddies of meat. Before Lan Bauer could finish one skewer, the remaining 9 had already been divided between Jidong and Fury. Compared to his senior, Jidong had only eaten 1 less skewer. Lady wiped the oil off his mouth and said, "Junior, you are indeed straightforward. What I hate the most is those men who are wishy-washy and pretentious. Eating a meal should be carefree, and bartending is the true enjoyment. This ale is not bad, right? It was brewed using a special method, and the requirements for craftsmanship are very high. The key is that it is fresh and mellow enough. To be honest, although I like bartending and all kinds of alcohol, I don't like bars. On the contrary, I like the feeling here more. Usually, when I have nothing to do, I will come here to eat something. In the future, you guys have to come here often too. Waiter, give me another 10 skewers." As he spoke, Jidong suddenly saw a few familiar figures. There were more than 10 people, and among them, there were 4 that he was more familiar with. They were the female disciple ranked third in the Yin-Yang Hall, Yi Xian of the Gui water element, Long Tian of the first wood element, Shui Ruhan of the sixth wood element, and Yi Saro of the 10th earth element. Although he was not familiar with the rest, he vaguely remembered that they were all from the Yin-Yang Hall, and from their ages, they seemed to be older. They should be the seniors who were ranked higher in the hall. When Ji Dong saw them, Lan Bauer naturally saw them as well. She said, "Senior brother Fury, it's senior sister Yi Xian and the rest. Do people from the Yin-Yang Hall like to come here?" Fury's gaze flickered slightly, and he nodded silently. He said something that Ji Dong and Lan Bauer could not understand. It's rare that they have such intentions. Yi Xian, Long Tian, and the rest also saw Fury and the other two, but they did not sit down. Instead, they sat down at a larger table not far away from them, and Yi Xian and the rest walked over. "Thunder Emperor, didn't you bring them to the preliminary examination? Why did you come here?" Yi Xian asked in surprise. In front of the Thunder Emperor, Fury, she was more or less reserved. Fury said plainly, "Their preliminary examination is over. Go and eat your food, and thank everyone for me." Yi Xian smiled and said, "There's no need to thank us. We just like a fragrant roasted meat. We won't disturb you then." As she said that, she even winked at Lan Bauer before walking back to her table. Fury Hyoheim said to Lan Bauer, "It's weird, isn't it? Actually, this place is—" Just as he said that, a loud and clear voice suddenly rang out. "Fury, you're here to support me again. I haven't seen you in a while." Ji Dong turned his head and saw a burly man who was not much smaller than Fury walking over. This burly man was wearing a chef's uniform, and he arrived at their table in a few steps. He did not stand on ceremony, and pulled out a chair and sat down. Lan Bauer let out a low gasp, but she quickly covered her mouth under Fury's sharp gaze. Ji Dong was also slightly shocked when he saw this person's appearance. This burly man in chef's uniform looked to be in his 40s. Although he was burly, he did not have his right arm, and his left eye was only a black hole. The entire left side of his face was covered in hideous scars, and he looked extremely terrifying. Lan Bauer was only a young girl, so she was naturally shocked. What surprised Ji Dong and Lan Bauer even more was that Fury, the top student of the Yin-Yang school, a 6-crown Thunder Heavenly Warrior, and the Thunder Emperor, was actually very respectful towards his chef. "Brother, I haven't been here for a while. I recently went to the Northwater Empire's Bartenders Guild headquarters." The chef smiled and said, "Looks like you've passed a 9-star bartender exam. Not bad. Come over and make me a drink sometime. These two are the new guys, right?" As he spoke, he smiled kindly at Hyoheim and Lan Bauer. However, his smile, coupled with his hideous face, was extremely ugly, and it was frightening. Fury said, "Yeah, these two guys just passed the preliminary exam. Brother, do you want to have a few drinks with us?" The chef shook his head and said with a smile, "No, I heard from my little brothers that you're here, so I came out to have a look. I still have a lot of work to do, and those little brothers' skills are not good enough. Barbecuing meat is also a skill, and I still need to be there to master the heat. I can't ruin my reputation. You guys eat slowly, and today's meal is on me. Just treat it as a welcome for the new little guy." As he spoke, the chef had already stood up, turned around, and left. When he passed by Yi Xian and Long Tian's table, he also greeted them. "You're wondering why I'm so respectful to him, aren't you?" Fury said with some emotion. Ji Dong said, "This chef brother should also be a magician, and he's from our 3rd fire element. If I'm not wrong, the reason why the barbecued meat here is so delicious is because he used 3rd fire to cook it." Fury nodded and said, "Junior, you're very observant. You're right. His name is Bing, and because he's like an endless and terrifying cannon when he uses magic skills, everyone gave him the nickname Cannon Dragon. When he left the Yin-Yang school, his magic power was 5 crowns, and he should still be 5 crowns now. To me, Cannon Dragon is like me to you now. Back then, he was the one who brought me to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range for the preliminary exam. When I first went to the Saint Evil battlefield, I was also by his side. His eyes, face, and arms were all the price he paid to save me on the Saint Evil battlefield. Canon Dragon was originally ranked 8th in the yin-yang school, and the teacher had high hopes for him. However, after his body was crippled, it was impossible for him to break through to 6 crowns. He didn't resent or feel dissatisfied, so he gave up the recruitment from the empires and unions and opened a first breath of incense here with the school's pension. While talking about this, Fury seemed very calm, but from his slightly trembling gaze, Ji Dong could see a lot of things. Canon Dragon has a forthright personality. Apart from the teacher, he helped me the most to become the Thunder Emperor of the Yin-Yang School. He will always be my brother. I didn't come here to spend money here. Every time I came, other than to eat the meat skewers that Canon Dragon roasted, it was more to see him. I know that his goal was to reach the highest realm of the 3rd Fire Magic Master, Victorious Light. Lon Bauer's eyes were already red, and she said, "I'm sorry, Senior Brother Fury. I'll go and apologize to Canon Dragon." Fury waved his hand and said, "Silly girl, why would Canon Dragon care about such a small matter? He would be very happy to see us, the disciples of the Yin-Yang School." He gave up a lot of good treatment and chose to stay in the Central Plain City, mostly because he couldn't bear to leave the Yin-Yang School. However, he knew that he couldn't teach the new students anything, so he chose to leave. From the beginning to the end, he didn't bring any trouble to the school. Another 10 skewers were served. Although Ji Dong was already full, he still picked up another one and tasted it again. He realized that the taste of the first breath of incense seemed to have changed again. At this moment, Fury, who was sitting opposite Ji Dong, suddenly stood up. Not far away, everyone at EX Science table also stood up. Ji Dong turned his head to look at the entrance of the first breath of incense and saw an old woman with a head full of silver hair walking in. This old woman was very special. Although she didn't look young, she was wearing a gorgeous blue dress. Even young girls rarely wore such a bright color. Moreover, it was a standard aristocratic palace dress. In her right hand was a deep blue scepter that looked like a crystal clear coral. Step by step, she slowly walked into the restaurant. Her movements were very slow, as if she was afraid of wrinkling the dress she was wearing. What was strange was that although her dress was gorgeous, she didn't wear any jewelry. Her eyes were bright when she opened and closed them, and her back was as straight as a young man's. Chapter 79. Fury, the Thunder Emperor, and all the disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall looked at the old woman respectfully. Since the seniors stood up, Ji Dong and Lon Bauer naturally stood up as well. At this moment, Canon Dragon quickly ran out of the kitchen. He wiped his remaining hand on his body and walked quickly to the old woman. He wanted to help the old woman up, but the old woman glared at him. He quickly put down his hand and said with some embarrassment, "Why are you here?" The old woman glared and said, "Why? Why can't I come? Little Bubble, you don't seem to welcome me." Her voice was different from the others, and it was very different from her age. It sounded like an oriole coming out of the valley. Even a young girl might not have such a beautiful voice. However, Canon Dragon, who was such a big guy, was called Little Bubble. It was really funny. Canon Dragon wiped the cold sweat that appeared on his forehead. Not only did he not refute it, but he also smiled and said, "How can that be? You are an important guest that I can't even invite." The old woman's anger turned into a smile, and she said, "That's more like it. Little Bubbles, I want small skewers with lean meat and not too much oil. Don't dirty my clothes. These are my new clothes. Aren't they beautiful?" Canon Dragon smiled and said, "Of course, you are always so beautiful." The old woman immediately smiled and said, "You really know how to talk. If my old man was half as good as you, I wouldn't have to quarrel with him all the time. Oh, there are quite a lot of people here today. Little Ruerue, you are here too. The old man said that you brought 2 little fellows to the preliminary exam. Why are you back so soon?" Little Ruerue, the muscles on Ji Dong's face twitched. He looked at his senior and thought to himself, "This little Ray can't be calling me senior, right?" Fury immediately confirmed Ji Dong's guess. He quickly walked up and said respectfully, even with some caution, "Little brother," and the others completed their task in advance. So we came back. The old woman raised her head and looked at Hyoheim and said, "Oh, so this is the little Dong Dong that the old man praised so much. Move a little? Ji-dong couldn't help but smile, but his expression froze. Fury waved at him and said, "Little junior brother, come and greet master's wife." "Madam?" Only then did Ji-dong understand that the old woman in splendid attire was actually his teacher, Zhu Rong's wife. The old man she mentioned was obviously Zhu Rong. However, this teacher's wife was really a little strange, especially the way she addressed people. With quick steps, Ji-dong stopped in front of the old woman and bowed. "Teacher's wife, hello." The old woman beamed as she looked at Ji-dong and said, "Good, good, you are a good kid. This old man has good eyes. 14 or 15 years old, and you're about to break through to the Triple Crown. No wonder the old thing said that your talent is not inferior to little Ruerue's." Ji-dong was startled. There wasn't even a trace of mana fluctuation coming from the teacher's wife in front of him, and she didn't even try to probe him. She just looked at him very casually, yet she was able to see through his true mana level. What kind of eyesight was that? Fury also looked at Ji-dong in surprise. He would never doubt the teacher's wife's eyes, but he couldn't understand it. Little junior brother had just broken through to the Triple Crown. How could he break through to the Triple Crown? The old woman squinted her eyes and carefully looked at Ji-dong. She said, "Little Dong Dong, I will sit at the same table with you." As she said that, she slowly walked towards Ji-dong's table. Ji-dong wanted to help her, but Fury quickly stopped him and whispered in his ear, "Teacher's wife loves cleanliness and hates people touching her clothes. It is okay to offend the teacher, but if anyone offends teacher's wife, they will be in big trouble. You must be careful. But it seems that teacher's wife likes you. She will only call someone she likes. You will get used to it." The old woman walked to the table and sat down. On the other side, Yi Xin and the others were still standing, but the old woman didn't care about them. It was as if she didn't see them. Fury waved at them, and they sat down. However, their eating speed was obviously slower, and they didn't even talk. "Little Dong Dong, come, sit beside me." The old woman, Hyoheim, waved. Ji-dong had no choice but to walk over and sit beside her. The old woman raised her head and looked at Lon Bauer. She said, "You are the girl called Bauer, right?" Although Lon Bauer didn't know who the old woman was, she could tell a lot from Fury's respectful expression. She quickly replied, "Lon Bauer greets the old senior." "Am I very old? Go sit over there." The old woman's expression changed, and her hand paused on the ground. Lon Bauer instantly felt a gentle force binding her body. Her whole body had already risen and was falling towards Xin. Xin quickly caught Lon Bauer and immediately gave her a look, signaling her not to say anything. The old woman muttered to herself, "Who said I am old? I'm still very young. Little Dong Dong, don't you think so?" Ji-dong's heart skipped a beat, but he still nodded and said, "Yes, you are still very young." The old woman immediately smiled and said, "That's more like it. You are stronger than that little girl. Come eat, eat. Little Bubble's roasted meat is very good." Ji-dong replied honestly, "Mistress, this disciple is already full." The old woman said, "Then help me hold the staff." As she said that, she handed over the blue staff in her hand. Ji-dong subconsciously used both hands to receive it. When the staff fell into his hands, he suddenly felt that his hands were heavy and he couldn't hold it firmly. The old woman held it slightly and said, "Little Dong Dong, hold it firmly." Ji-dong hurriedly gathered his magic power and barely managed to hold the scepter. However, he still dropped one into the ground and held it with both hands. He was shocked to find that this dark blue scepter probably weighed more than 500 kilograms. This teacher's wife seemed to be moving slowly, but just the weight of this scepter gave Ji-dong a new understanding of her. Compared to his teacher, Zhu Rong, this teacher's wife seemed to be even more unfathomable. The old woman smiled and said, "Little Dong Dong, do you think the third fire or the fourth fire is stronger?" Ji-dong didn't expect that she would suddenly ask such a question. He was slightly startled and said, "It should be that each has its own advantages. The 5 elements have their own characteristics. The real strength does not lie in any one of the elements, but in the Devil Master's own cultivation." The old woman shook her head and said, No, what you said is wrong. Wrong? Jidong looked at the old woman doubtfully. He thought that his answer could be said to be flawless, and it was indeed what he thought in his heart. The old woman said, clearly, the fourth fire is the most powerful. The fourth fire is soft and bright. The third fire is just a momentary burst of power, but the fourth fire is endless. Little Dong Dong, remember, Madam's name is Yin Xiaorong. Only then did Ji Dong understand that this madam was a Fuwa series devil master. At the same time, he couldn't help but secretly laugh in his heart. This Madame Liang was somewhat suspicious of old Wang selling melons. Little Dong Dong, how about this? Don't recognize that old thing Zhurong as your teacher. Worship me as your teacher. How about it? Yin Xiaorong was still looking at Ji Dong with a smile, but her words surprised Ji Dong. Ji Dong's expression changed slightly. Although Zhurong hadn't taught him anything, he still respected the old man in his heart. Yin Xiaorong's words were really unacceptable to him. He said in a deep voice, Madam, this is impossible. A teacher for a day is a father for a lifetime. What's more, you're my teacher's wife. How can you say that? Since ancient times, there was a saying that a monarch was the ruler of his subjects, a father was the ruler of his children, and a husband was the ruler of his wife. You, my teacher, are husband and wife. Listening to Ji Dong's words, even the Thunder Emperor's expression changed. He kept signaling Hyoheim with his eyes, but Ji Dong acted as if he didn't see it and still said it. The stubbornness in his heart couldn't be controlled by others. Even when facing Zhu Ke, he wasn't the least bit timid. At the other table, the expressions of Yi Xian and the others also changed. They looked at Ji Dong dumbfounded. In their impression, this was the first time someone dared to talk back to Yin Xiaorong. Yin Xiaorong's expression darkened, and she said, Humph, you are indeed that old thing's disciple. Just like him, stinky and stubborn. If I tell you that old thing Zhurong can't beat me, will you change your mind? Ji Dong smiled indifferently and said, Madam, strength doesn't mean everything. As the saying goes, poverty can't be shaken, wealth can't be corrupted, and power can't be subdued. I don't know what conflict you have with my teacher, but I really don't agree with and can't understand your way of doing things. I'm sorry, I'm full. Goodbye. As she spoke, she handed the scepter back to Yin Xiaorong, turned around, and walked out. Bang! Yin Xiaorong fiercely slammed the scepter in his hand on the ground. Immediately, the entire mouthful of fragrance restaurant shook violently. All the disciples of the Heavenly STEM Academy stood up and looked over nervously. Kid, do you know who I am? Yin Xiaorong looked at Ji Dong coldly. Ji Dong turned around, and his gaze was calm and unperturbed. He said, I only know that you are my madam. As for your other identities, it has nothing to do with me. Madam, goodbye. I won't tell my teacher about today's matter. As he finished, he turned around and left. Looking at Ji Dong's back as he left, Yin Xiaorong suddenly smiled and said, This little brat is exactly the same as that old thing when he was young. He's really cute. Fury, who was at the side, said, Madam, don't be angry. Little junior brother's temper is like this. How about I go and persuade him? Yin Xiaorong glared at him and said, Persuade what? You get lost too. Don't disturb my meal. Yes, I will leave. Fury secretly heaved a sigh of relief and quickly turned around to chase after Ji Dong. Yin Xiaorong's eyes revealed an imperceptible smile. She nodded gently and said to herself in a voice that only she could hear, This old thing has a good eye for choosing disciples. Fury chased out of the restaurant and caught up to Ji Dong in a few steps. He said, Little junior brother, wait for me. Ji Dong saw that Fury had caught up and frowned. He said, Senior brother, why didn't you speak up for teacher just now? Although she is madam, she slandered teacher like that. Are you just going to tolerate it? Little junior brother, you are a real man. I can't compare to you. Fury hugged Ji Dong's shoulder and said, You scared me to death just now. I was really afraid that madam would attack you out of anger. Not to mention me. Even if teacher was here, he wouldn't be able to stop her. Ji Dong said indifferently, A real man has some things to do and some things not to do. Senior brother, It seems that I have misjudged you. Fury shook his head helplessly and said, Silly boy, it's because you don't understand the relationship between teacher and madam. That's why you said that. Do you know that madam is teacher's martial aunt? Teacher is very well behaved in front of madam. Ji Dong was stunned. He said, Wait, senior brother, this relationship is a bit messy. I don't understand. Fury smiled bitterly. Teacher is famous for being henpecked by his wife. According to teacher himself, he was bullied by madam for his whole life. Teacher's teacher was madam's brother and was also the world's #1 fire-type devil master. He was one of the 5 supremes guarding the Saint Evil battlefield. Madam is older than teacher by 15 years. I don't know why they are together. Think about it. Under this kind of relationship, how could madam not be domineering? You let go of a good opportunity just now. Madam has never accepted a disciple in her life. Ji Dong scratched his head and said, This is a bit messy. Then isn't the relationship between teacher and madam a teacher-student relationship and a domineering sister? Fury nervously gestured for Yi Futian to keep quiet. He said, Junior brother, lower your voice. If madam hears you, it'll be terrible. Let me tell you, our madam's strength is comparable to the 5 supremes guarding the Saint Evil battlefield. Not only is she the vice principal of Heavenly Deity Academy, she is also the #1 expert of Heavenly Deity Academy. She is also the only powerful existence in the entire academy who has an exclusive title. Madam is from the Fuhua series, and her exclusive title is the Fuhua series, Tai. Mentioning the 5 words Tai, Yin, Zhao, and Rong, the entire Radiance continent will tremble. Only you have the guts to talk back to her face. I really admire you. The exclusive title of the Fuhua series, Tai, 9 Crown Supremes? Even though Ji Dong already had an estimation of the unfathomable madam, he still did not expect her strength to reach such a terrifying level. It was no wonder that the elite disciples of the Yinyang Hall were so respectful and fearful of her just now. Fury said in a low voice, Madam is only the vice principal and not the principal because the Heavenly Deity Academy was founded by the Central Empire, and the Central Empire is the center of the continent. Madam is too lazy to manage some mundane affairs, so she is only the vice principal. However, among the top 10 directors of the Heavenly Deity Academy, Madam will always be the first. Other than teacher, all the other directors have to pay their respects when they see Madam and address her as His Majesty Tai. Ji Dong asked curiously, Senior brother, have you seen Madam fight before? How was the strength of a 9 Crown Supremes compared to the Vermilion Bird? Fury looked around, lowered his head, and whispered into Ji Dong's ear, Let me tell you one thing, and you will understand. Master's wife's mount is the 4th fire divine beast of the heavenly stem divine beasts, Flying Serpent. Chapter 80. Ji Dong did understand. It would be strange if he didn't understand after hearing Fury's words. The words sovereign were deeply imprinted in his mind. At this moment, he truly understood the extent of his master's wife's power. With the divine beast Flying Serpent as her mount, she was definitely at the peak of strength in the entire continent. Fury smiled bitterly. Little Junior, now you know why everyone is so afraid of Master's wife. Even the emperors of various countries have to bow to her. Ji Dong nodded silently. Senior, let's return to the academy. I plan to go into seclusion for a few days. Going into seclusion again? Little Junior, if you're too rigid, you'll break easily. Don't go overboard with your cultivation. All right, Master's wife just said that your magic is close to reaching 3 crowns. What's going on? Didn't you just reach 2 crowns? Ji Dong didn't hide it anymore. He explained how he absorbed the magic from the Vermilion Bird and its eggs when he was helping the Vermilion Bird hatch. He wasn't very clear about the specifics at the time. If that's the case, then go into seclusion. However, reaching 3 crowns is no small matter. It's better to ask Master to protect you. Ji Dong glanced at Fury and nodded silently. I'll rest for a day or 2, then I'll trouble Master again. After this preliminary test, Ji Dong's magic skills and battle experience had improved greatly. His magic had also increased to the next critical point. However, To him, it was more important to fully understand his own shortcomings. He understood that he had been relying on the flaming bar to some extent in the past. But if he really wanted to have the power to protect the flaming bar, he couldn't completely rely on her. Moreover, from the conversation between the flaming bar and the vermilion bird, he also heard many things. It was obvious that the flaming bar couldn't easily come to the human world. It was not a joke, and it was related to her safety. When the two returned to the Heavenly STEM Academy, it was already late at night. Ji-dong tactfully declined Fury's invitation for a drink and directly returned to his room. As soon as he closed the door, he impatiently called out, "The flaming bar, the red lotus swept through." This time, there was no longer any obstruction in the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Ji-dong shuttled through the layers of red lotus petals. The blazing heat reappeared. Ji-dong took a deep breath of the scorching air that was fatal to ordinary people. He only felt a sense of comfort throughout his body. Only in this core world could his mind be at its most relaxed. The flaming bar stood on the platform and smiled at him. Seeing her again after not seeing her for a few days, Ji-dong couldn't help but feel a strong yearning and desire. "The flaming bar, I'm coming. I'll mix the drink for you first." As he spoke, Ji-dong immediately busied himself. No matter how tired he was, as long as it was for the sake of the flaming bar, he would immediately adjust himself to his best condition. He focused all the emotions in his heart into a glass of drink. In just a short while, a cocktail as beautiful as the rainbow was delivered to the flaming bar. "I'm sorry, flaming bar. I know you had good intentions that day, but..." The flaming bar shook her head and placed her slender fingers on Ji-dong's lips. "You didn't do anything wrong. I was too radical. You did better than me. Ji-dong, I'm really happy. You've made me feel that you've really grown up this time." Seeing that the flaming bar didn't blame him, Ji-dong's tensed heart instantly relaxed. He said, "It's a pity that I didn't get to see the little vermilion bird more. I only remember that she was very cute when she was born. If I have the chance, I'll definitely visit them again." Raging Flames sighed softly, took a sip of wine, and said, "Little Ji-dong, this time you owe the vermilion bird a great favor. If you have the chance in the future, you must repay her." I didn't expect the vermilion bird's personality to be so unyielding. It can be seen that she really treats you as a friend. "I owe the vermilion bird a favor." Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar in confusion. The flaming bar nodded and said, "Yes." Although she thinks that you've done more for her by helping her incubate the child, in reality, what she's repaying you far exceeds what you've done. Look." As he spoke, the flaming bar's left hand swept across the air. A red lotus's petals unfolded in the air, revealing an illusory scene. Above the Earth's core lake, spots of red light gathered at the illusory place. After a while, the illusory light and shadow became real. Ji-dong was surprised to see that it was the scene of him in the vermilion bird's cave. He saw himself pressing one hand on the vermilion bird's egg. His face was pale and his body was trembling slightly. At this time, the vermilion bird was behind him. She watched as the phoenix blood parasol tree core and the extreme yang essence flew up one after another. They were refined by her Bingwu primordial yang sacred fire. The 3 drops of phoenix blood merged into her body. Phoenix feathers stained with juices pierced into every part of his body until all the juices had disappeared. At the same time, he could clearly see the huge white wing tattoo on his back. The tattoo extended from his shoulders to his buttocks and stopped at his thighs. "This is..." Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar in shock. The flaming bar said, "Originally, I planned to take advantage of this opportunity to ask the vermilion bird for the extreme yang essence or the phoenix coronet bloodline and the phoenix blood parasol woods tree core in preparation for forging a suitable magical armor for you in the future. A good magical weapon requires top-grade materials. The vermilion bird is a fire divine beast, so the materials around her have been contaminated by her body for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. They're even better than what I have here. When you decided to give up, I was indeed a little disappointed. After all, this kind of opportunity won't come again. But who would have thought that the vermilion bird would use her own divine power to fuse those materials into one, and then use her phoenix feathers to pierce into your skin. This is to pour her own power into your body and fuse it with the solar eclipse in fire you have absorbed. On the surface, your magical power has risen to level 30, but in fact, this is not the biggest benefit you have obtained this time. The vermilion bird used her phoenix feathers as needles to forge a special armor for you. It can be called an inner armor. It is completely fused with your skin, and when you are strong enough, it will show its proper radiance. Moreover, this inner armor will also grow with your body and will always be compatible with your body. Every phoenix feather of the vermilion bird carries a bit of her own phoenix marrow. In order to forge this inner armor, the vermilion bird's vitality has been greatly damaged. It's just that she didn't show in front of you, but she won't be able to recover her vitality without a few hundred years. Ji Dong blankly listened to the flaming bar's narration and said, "How could it be like this? I actually took advantage of the vermilion bird so much, I really just wanted to help her." The flaming bar lightly nodded and said, "If it wasn't for your selfless heart, why would the vermilion bird hurt her own vitality to repay you? She still had to help her own child recuperate. I'm afraid that the damage to her body would be even greater. You can't just accept this kindness in vain." You're right. For a mother who has protected her child for 3,000 years, any kind of help should be given. As she spoke, the flaming bar finished the wine in her glass in one gulp and returned the glass to Ji Dong. She slowly walked to the edge of the rock platform and slowly raised her hands in front of her chest, making a heart shape. The light in her eyes also became unprecedentedly serious. Circles of red light flowed out from her body, floating and spreading. The fire elements that were originally flowing freely in the air all calmed down, quietly moving rhythmically along with the fluctuations of magic released by the flaming bar. Ji Dong had never seen the flaming bar so solemn. The fluctuations of the fire elements in the air gave him the same feeling as when the vermilion bird had brought him out of the cave and instantly turned the sky into a third fire world, even more intense than the fire elements at that time. In the distance ahead, at the widest part of the Earth's core lake, huge bubbles slowly emerged, and the surrounding magma also fluctuated extremely unstably. Vaguely, Ji Dong could see that in the center of the Earth's core lake, there seemed to be something gushing out. At this moment, a huge red beam of light suddenly erupted from the center of the Earth's core lake. The air in the entire Earth's core lake seemed to have turned into a solid substance. Ji Dong felt like an insect embedded in amber, unable to move and unable to breathe. The vitality of his whole body seemed to have been squeezed together. Only his eyes could still see everything in the center of the magma lake through that thick red. With a poof, a huge object climbed out of the magma lake. It was actually a red lotus. It was no longer formed by energy, but a real red lotus. Stained with golden red magma, it floated out of the water bit by bit. The magma slid down from the lotus, unexpectedly not leaving even the slightest bit. Coming out of the magma, without being stained, this red lotus's diameter was at least more than 5 meters. Every petal was the purest red. In the center of the lotus, a lotus seed head rose quietly. The lotus seed head was also red, and one could vaguely see a total of more than 10 fist-sized golden lotus seeds. Flaming Bar raised her hand and gently pressed between her eyebrows. Instantly, a thick red burst out from her body, forming a huge red halo. Flaming Bar's delicate face revealed a pained expression. Although her back was facing Ji Dong, and Ji Dong could not see the expression on her face, he could see that Flaming Bar's body was trembling nonstop. In the center of the magma lake, a golden lotus seed was swaying gently on top of the huge red lotus. Flaming Bar's trembling body suddenly pointed her finger, and the red halo around her body instantly turned into a ray of light and flew towards the swaying lotus seed. The golden light shone brightly, and Flaming Bar let out a soft cry. As her face turned pale, the golden lotus seed left the lotus seed head and flew towards her with a red glow. Flaming Bar panted heavily, and the thick fire element in the air gradually calmed down. The huge red lotus sank back into the Earth's core, and Ji-dong regained his ability to move. Flaming Bar, what's wrong? Ji-dong pounced towards her. When he saw Flaming Bar in this state, the pain in his heart was 100 times, 1,000 times more painful than the suffocation he had felt earlier. When he came closer, he saw that Flaming Bar's face was pale. At the same time, she caught the golden lotus seed, which was about the size of a fist, in one of her hands. Flaming Bar's Hyoheim forced a smile and shook her head. Don't worry, it's all right. Ji-dong, keep this lotus seed well. When you return to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, give it to the vermilion bird. As he received the lotus seed from Flaming Bar, Ji-dong realized that although the lotus seed had been extracted from the magma in the Earth's core, it was not boiling hot. It was only warm, and Ji-dong could vaguely feel that the lotus seed seemed to be pulsating gently, as if there was blood pulsing within it. No, Flaming Bar, this lotus seed must be very important to you. You said that you were a red lotus in the Earth's core, and this lotus seed should be a part of you. How can I let you use it to repay me? I will repay what I owe the vermilion bird myself. Flaming Bar's expression gradually became better, and she said, Ji-dong, why can't you understand? Now is the time when the vermilion bird needs your help the most. No, you can't. You definitely can't. Ji-dong's emotions were extremely Ji-dong's. Looking at Flaming Bar's pale face, his heart was about to break. He had never been as terrified as he was now, not even when he was on the verge of death. The Flaming Bar's position in his heart had risen to a point that even he himself did not understand. Shut up, Flaming Bar sternly shouted. Ji-dong, why can't you understand what I mean? I'd rather you owe me than owe the vermilion bird. The lotus seed has already been stripped and can no longer return. If you can't let it go in your heart, then you owe me another favor. Moreover, I will give you this lotus seed sooner or later, but the vermilion bird has already helped me do what you needed, so this lotus seed can be considered a reward. Ji-dong looked at Flaming Bar, and the agitation in his eyes gradually calmed down. Flaming Bar's words, I'd rather you owe me than owe the vermilion bird, had deeply touched Ji-dong's heart. Ever since he had known the Flaming Bar, this was the first time he felt that the Flaming Bar cared about him from her emotions. Even if it seemed to be a kind of possessiveness, it still filled his heart with ecstasy. So, she also cares about me. Silently nodding his head, Ji-dong carefully placed the golden lotus seed into his vermilion bird bracelet. After calming down, he softly said, Flaming Bar, actually you're wrong. I will never owe you anything, because from the first time I saw you, my everything already belonged to you. As long as I live for a year, I belong to you for a year, and as long as I live for a day, I belong to you for a day. Even in the last second of my life, I still belong to you. Even if I die and turn into ashes, I will still have your mark. Chapter 81. His expression was calm, but it did not mean that his emotions were calm. Feeling the Flaming Bar's concern for him, Ji-dong blurted out the words that he had been holding in his heart for a long time. He had never truly pursued a girl before, and he did not know if what he said could be considered a confession. However, he could not help but say what he was thinking. He wanted to let the Flaming Bar know that no matter when, in his heart, no one could replace her. Hearing Ji-dong's words, the Flaming Bar was stunned. Ji-dong lowered his head. He found that his heart was beating violently. Flaming Bar, I'll be leaving first. Since I want to help the vermilion bird, I'll deliver it to her tonight. My mana is about to break through to the Triple Crown. Senior brother said to have the teacher protect me while I break through, so I might not be able to come over for a few days. Goodbye, Flaming Bar. The red lotus swept away. Under the Flaming Bar's gaze, the red lotus swept away and brought Ji-dong out of the Earth's core. Looking at the place where Ji-dong disappeared, the Flaming Bar raised his hand to touch his slightly red face. What's wrong with me? Why is my face so hot? Ji-dong, you little guy. You're really... Returning to the Enyang Hall, Ji-dong immediately ran out of the academy and out of the city. He remembered the location of the Earth Spirit Mountain Range very clearly. His mana had reached level 30, so his physical strength had naturally increased. He ran as fast as a galloping horse. Soon, he was out of the city gates and heading east. After saying those words, Jidong's blood was still boiling. The cool night wind blew, but his heart could not calm down. Only the figure of the flaming bar appeared in his mind. He was also nervous. After hearing what he said, what would happen to the flaming bar? He was really afraid that the flaming bar would be angry with him. However, it was too late for regrets now. After running at full speed for less than 4 hours, Jidong once again entered the Earth Spirit mountain range. He still had 100 gold coins on hand. After paying, he directly entered the mountain range. With the identity token of the Yin-Yang Hall's number 49, he did not encounter any difficulties. Jidong extravagantly relied on his mana to support his body. Every time his mana was about to be depleted, he would take out a crystal core to absorb the mana within. If other magicians saw his extravagant behavior, they would definitely be furious. However, at this moment, his mind was only filled with that perfect figure. He was already a little dazed and could not be bothered to calculate the cost of the crystal core. To avoid trouble, once he entered the mountain range, Jidong immediately took out a phoenix feather tail from the vermilion burr bracelet. In the night, the phoenix feather emitted a misty red light. It was very beautiful. Not only could it illuminate his surroundings, but more importantly, the aura of the phoenix feather was enough to make all magical beasts shrink back. When low-level magical beasts saw Jidong, they almost immediately ran away. When high-level magical beasts felt the aura of the phoenix feather, they also avoided it. Jidong almost ran in a straight line towards the vermilion bird's cave. The sky gradually brightened, and Jidong also stopped, gasping for breath. After a night of madly running, his already exhausted body and mind were somewhat unable to support himself. Fortunately, the vermilion burr bracelet still had the dry rations and water that he had prepared before entering the mountain range. After replenishing some, he rested for a moment, then continued on his way. After an hour, when the sky brightened and the sun slowly rose from the east, Jidong finally revisited the old place. Once again, he arrived outside the vermilion bird's cave. Stopping, the extremely tired Jidong couldn't help but feel a little black in front of his eyes. He stood there gasping for breath, feeling a little better. It must be known that he had gone through a series of fierce battles yesterday, and also helped the vermilion bird hatch the little vermilion bird. After that, he hadn't had a good rest. Even if his body had been soaked in dragon blood, at this moment, he still couldn't support himself. Jidong, why have you come? The vermilion bird's melodious voice came from the cave, and a gentle suction force lifted Jidong's body, bringing him into the cave again. With his previous experience, this time, Jidong completely relaxed his body, allowing the vermilion bird's demonic power to bring him deeper into the cave. The red color of the extreme yang refined ores illuminated the path ahead. Very soon, he saw the fire phoenix that represented fire among the heavenly stem divine beasts. At this moment, the vermilion bird was standing under the phoenix blood parasol tree. Its huge wings were folded in front of its body, and a small phoenix head peeked out from the gap between its wings. When it saw Jidong, it immediately called out a few times in a very intimate manner. As soon as he saw the vermilion bird, Jidong knew that the flaming bar was right. The vermilion bird's extremely bright phoenix eyes revealed a deep sense of exhaustion. She nodded at him gently, then lay on the ground. A faint red light was emitting from her wings, nourishing the little vermilion bird's body. "Friend, why have you come back? Is something the matter?" asked the vermilion bird softly. Jidong nodded. "Vermilion bird, do you really treat me as a friend?" The vermilion bird was stunned for a moment. "Of course. You helped me hatch my child and saved her life. I will always remember this kindness." Jidong asked, "Then why didn't you tell me that you helped me insert those treasures in my body and condense them into the vermilion bird inner armor?" The vermilion bird chuckled. "So that's why. Her Majesty the Flaming Bar told you, right? Don't take it to heart. I did that to save my child. If your body couldn't hold on, what would happen to my child? So don't think too much about it. Besides, we're friends, so it's only right for us to help each other, isn't it?" Jidong also smiled. "I'm relieved to hear that. The Flaming Bar asked me to give this to you. I believe it will be of help to you." As he spoke, he took out the golden lotus seed that the flaming bar had given him from the vermilion bird bracelet. Ji-dong didn't feel much when he was at the geocentric lake. Now that he was in the outside world, as soon as he took out the lotus seed, the entire cave was instantly illuminated in gold. The little vermilion bird stared straight at the lotus seed in Ji-dong's hand. She pursed her lips and revealed a look of longing. This is... The vermilion bird was also stunned. Her eyes focused, and she suddenly stood up from the ground. Natal red lotus? This is the Her Majesty, the Flaming Bar Empress Natal Red Lotus? Ji-dong said, I don't know what the Natal Red Lotus is, but since the Flaming Bar asked me to give it to you, I believe it will be of some use to you. Take it. As he spoke, he handed over the golden lotus seed. It's really for me? The vermilion bird's eyes were filled with disbelief. Ji-dong smiled. Do you think I would lie to you? The vermilion bird stared blankly at the golden lotus seed. She gently stroked the little vermilion bird in her arms. No, Ji-dong, I can't take it. It's too precious. Do you know what this lotus seed means? Ji-dong shook his head in confusion. The vermilion bird laughed bitterly. Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress is a red lotus from the Earth's core. In order to restore peace to the underground world, she defeated the two great lords and became the ruler of the underground world. You may not fully understand Her Majesty's position in the underground world, but I have to tell you that this natal red lotus is equivalent to Her Majesty's life force and cultivation base. I estimate that Her Majesty only has a total of 9 of them. Every single one of them was condensed by absorbing the fire element from the underground world's core for more than 10,000 years before they matured. Not only are they a part of her body, they're also a symbol of her power. Just this one lotus seed alone is enough for me to advance further. I was originally ranked in the top 5 among the heavenly stem divine beasts, but if I eat this lotus seed, not only will I recover all my energy, my power will also surpass all the other heavenly stem divine beasts in a short period of time, and I will be ranked first. Ji-dong looked at the golden lotus seed in his hand. He really did not expect such a small lotus seed to have such an effect. This was no longer something that could be described as a heavenly treasure. The flaming bar had actually taken out such a precious item to repay a favor for him. However, since he was already here, how could he take back the lotus seed in his hand? Vermilion bird, you've said it yourself. We are friends, and we should help each other. You and the flaming bar are of the fire element. Both of you are my friends, so don't stand on ceremony. Even if you don't think for yourself, you should think for your child. You're not powerful enough. How can you help her recover her vitality? You're not powerful enough to protect her. She has suffered for 3,000 years. Do you want her child to be in danger again? Take it. As he spoke, Ji-dong handed over the lotus seed. 2 drops of red, crystal-clear liquid flowed out of the vermilion bird's eyes and quietly dripped onto the ground. She choked with sobs and said, Thank you. Thank you. Ji-dong, please thank Her Majesty the Empress for me. Although I can't thank her with words, I really don't know what to say now. Ji-dong smiled as he walked to the vermilion bird and said, Can I touch the little fellow? The vermilion bird nodded gently and said, She likes you very much. You're the first male creature she's seen since she was born. We vermilion birds have a very good memory. She'll never forget your scent. Ji-dong gently stroked the little vermilion bird's head. The little vermilion bird took the initiative to rub her head against Ji-dong. Her pair of fiery red eyes blinked again and again as she stared fixedly at Ji-dong without blinking. The vermilion bird supported the golden lotus seed with her wings. Her long beak lightly pecked, and the outer layer of golden skin was immediately peeled off by her. The vermilion bird swallowed the skin, revealing the deep red lotus heart inside. You humans have a saying called the Heart of Wisdom. Little do you know that Her Majesty the Empress's red lotus heart is the true gate of wisdom. With this lotus heart, even if my child's body is weak, it will be enough to recover. As she spoke, she used her long beak to hold the lotus heart and brought it to the little vermilion bird's mouth. The little vermilion bird was not polite and ate it in 2 or 3 bites. She even issued 2 tender cries, appearing extremely satisfied. At this moment, A faint layer of golden light was emitted from the vermilion bird's body. At the same time, there was a rich lotus fragrance. The vermilion bird closed her eyes in enjoyment and tightly hugged her child with her wings. She said, "Jidong, the little fellow, and I may have to sleep for a period of time. No words are enough to express my gratitude to you and Her Majesty the Empress. Please send my regards to Her Majesty the Empress. In the future, if the vermilion bird has any use for the vermilion bird will comply." Jidong smiled faintly and stroked the little vermilion bird's head again. He said, "Have a good rest. Seeing that you are all right is my greatest happiness. We are friends, not because of benefits. There is no need to talk about repayment. Goodbye." It was unknown whether the vermilion bird had heard Jidong's words. Before he had finished speaking, they had already fallen into a deep sleep. The entire cave was filled with the golden light and the rich lotus fragrance. Even Jidong felt that his body was much better after smelling this fragrance. Not in a hurry to leave, Jidong leaned against the stone wall and started to operate his yin-yang vortex. He was really too tired. If he didn't rest, it would be difficult to leave the Earth's Spirit Mountain range. In the blink of an eye, Jidong had already entered into a state of cultivation. The yin-yang vortex operated on its own, absorbing the dense fire element in the vermilion bird's cave. Of course, the fire element here was only third fire. It wasn't like the Earth Spirit Lake, which had two attributes. After an unknown amount of time, when Jidong woke up from his cultivation state, he was already in good spirits. The vermilion bird and her daughter were still in a deep sleep. However, the golden light in the cave had already faded a lot. Standing up and moving a little, Jidong suddenly felt that his body was full of strength. After soaking in dragon blood, his recovery speed was indeed extremely fast. He didn't know that although it was the vermilion bird and her daughter who had eaten the flaming bar's life red lotus, the lotus fragrance and the strong golden light had also nourished his body. The flaming bar's life red lotus's effect was extremely overbearing. Even a mythological beast like the vermilion bird would have a qualitative leap in strength after eating it. If Jidong had eaten it directly, his body wouldn't have been able to bear it. He would have immediately exploded and died. However, indirectly absorbing some of its effect wasn't a problem. He had already clearly felt that his magic had reached level 30, and it was possible for him to break through to the Triple Crown at any time. It was time to go back. Looking at the vermilion bird and her daughter's sleeping appearance, Jidong had a satisfied smile on his face. He walked out of the vermilion bird's cave and left in the direction he had come from. It was already noon outside. Looking at the color of the sky, Jidong inwardly smiled. He was afraid that he would only be able to rush back after dark. The vermilion bird's words echoed in his mind. Life Red Lotus. The flaming bar had unexpectedly given him something so precious. His heart couldn't help but twitch. Whenever he thought of the flaming bar's weak and painful appearance, his heart would ache. Just as Jidong had expected, the sun had already set when he rushed back to the Central Plain City. Walking into the city, Jidong walked in the direction of the Heavenly STEM Academy. Right now, he only wanted to quickly return to his room, take a hot bath, and have a good sleep. Tomorrow, he would be able to strive for the Triple Crown. The Heavenly STEM Academy was already in sight. Jidong was surprised to see that a group of students wearing school uniforms were surrounding the main entrance of the academy. They seemed to be looking at something. Chapter 82. There were at least 100 people gathered at the entrance of the Heavenly STEM Academy. It had been a while since Jidong had come to the academy, but this was the first time he had seen such a situation. As the #1 academy on the continent and a top-notch academy jointly established by the 5 empires, the Heavenly STEM Academy might occupy a vast area, but in reality, it did not have many students. Taking everything into account, there were no more than 1,000 students. For a tenth of them to be gathered in front of the main entrance, and it was even in the middle of the night, it was obvious that something had happened. Jidong walked to the back of the crowd and heard the students discussing something. The Yin-Yang Academy is still the best. I must work hard and cultivate. I still have a chance to achieve 2 championships before I turn 16. Sai, you're good. Being young really has an advantage. It's useless for me to work hard now. In fact, I was just a little bit short back then. When I achieved 2 championships, I was only 16 for 3 months. Unfortunately, the Enyang Academy's admission requirements are too strict. I really envy them for having a social ball. A social ball? Hearing these words, Ji-dong couldn't help but feel confused. Why would there be a ball? At this moment, he heard the person in front of him say, "I heard that the Enyang Academy holds a ball like this twice a year. It seems to have a purpose. It seems to be to promote interaction between the male and female students of the Enyang Academy. After all, they're all elites, and the Academy hopes that the disciples of the Enyang Academy can be matched up. Moreover, the Academy has a rule that as long as both parents were once disciples of the Enyang Academy, their children can directly enter the Enyang Academy in the future. There's no need to go through any tests, and there are no restrictions on strength." That works? Does this count as picking up girls legally? It's much better than that. Not to mention the Enyang Academy. Even for us official students and beginner students, the Academy has never prohibited us from dating. If we delay our cultivation because of dating, we will naturally be eliminated during the annual test. I wonder if we have a chance of being chosen this time. Brother, I think you have a better chance. You're about to achieve 3 championships. You're also of the right age and looks. Don't praise me. Let's work hard together. It would be great if the female disciples of the Enyang Academy took a liking to me. Listening to the students' discussion, Ji-dong couldn't help but nod his head. He was very much in favor of the Heavenly STEM Academy system. Elite pair with elite, and the possibility of producing an elite was very high. So this world actually had the concept of good birth and good education. How interesting. Driven by curiosity, Ji-dong squeezed his way in. With his strength nearing that of a triple champion, squeezing his way in was nothing to him. Soon, he reached the intersection. He saw a notice pasted on a stone pillar next to the institute's main entrance. On the notice was written, "In order to enhance mutual exchanges, the Enyang Hall's ball will be held in 3 days. At that time, all Enyang Hall disciples can participate, and they can also bring their spouses or dance partners." The notice was very simple. Aside from this simple sentence, the time and location were written below. It would be held in the evening in 3 days, and the location would be the Earth Department's auditorium. In addition to this notice, there was another notice posted beside it. This was the key point that attracted the attention of the 100 people in front of them. The primary and official student selection will be held tomorrow. At that time, all students of the Heavenly STEM Academy can participate. Based on the strength, temperament, appearance, and other aspects of the Demon Master, male and female students will each choose 10 people. Those who are chosen can participate in the Enyang Hall's ball 3 days later. Selection? Wasn't this just a beauty contest? No, it was even more complicated than a beauty contest because it also involved strength. Ji-dong laughed inwardly. The Heavenly STEM Academy was indeed different. It seemed like these activities were only to promote mutual exchanges between students. But in reality, wasn't it also to promote competition between students? This kind of activity was probably held every year. No matter what the reason was, the students would definitely cultivate even harder. This method was much better than the forced exam-oriented education. As expected of the continent's #1 academy. Ji-dong, why are you here? Big Brother Fury has been looking for you all day. A somewhat familiar voice sounded, and then a slender figure squeezed in front of Ji-dong. The primary and official students who were watching the notice moved aside. Ji-dong looked up. It really was someone he knew. It was the Earth Element Demon Master he had once humiliated, Ji Yesheng, who was ranked 10th in Enyang Hall. Ji Yesheng's expression was a bit anxious. He strode in front of Ji-dong, glanced at the notice, and said with a low laugh, "Brother, do you have a dance partner? Do you want me to introduce one to you? If you don't have a dance partner at our school's ball, you'll be laughed at." Ji-dong looked at him speechlessly, thinking, "I don't seem to know you that well. Senior Brother Ji, you just said that Senior Brother Fury was looking for me?" Ji Yesheng hurriedly said, "Yes, Big Brother Fury has been looking for you all day. He said he didn't see you in your room. You might have gone out shopping. I'll go find him now. Thank you for the notice." With that, Ji-dong said goodbye to Ji Yesheng and hurried in the direction of the Earth Elements building. As soon as he left, the students behind him immediately started discussing. Who was that? He looks younger than us. Is he also a student of Enyang Hall? You probably don't know. His name is Ji Dong. I heard he's a fire element magician with both Bing and Ding. He's very powerful. A few days ago, he defeated the water element team alone and helped the fire element win first place. He's already stronger than 2 champions. He also knows individual combo skills. He's very powerful. Sigh, these people from Enyang Hall really are all monsters. Ji Yeseng caught up with Ji Dong and walked side by side with him. Ji Dong, last time Big Brother Fury challenged you, but he didn't announce the result. What was the result? Other people don't know, but I know very well that he must have challenged you to bartending. Ji Dong glanced at him and said indifferently, "This doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, does it?" Ji Yeseng smiled awkwardly. "You can't say that. Look, I'm a member of the Central Plains City Bartending Club, and Big Brother Fury is the branch president. Of course I care about the president's victory in bartending." Ji Dong found it funny. "Then why don't you ask Senior Brother Fury?" "This?" Ji Yeseng smiled bitterly. "I have to have the guts to do that. Big Brother Fury's title of Thunder Emperor isn't for nothing. He hates people harassing him the most. I don't want to cause trouble for myself. I still remember that last time, Big Brother Fury said that the earth element has thick skin and can take hits. We'd be good sandbags." Seeing Ji Yeshang's pitiful look, Ji Dong couldn't help but laugh. This guy used to be arrogant in front of him, but now it seemed that he did have the right to be arrogant. The longer Ji Dong had been in the Heavenly STEM Academy, the more he understood how powerful this place was. It wasn't luck that Ji Yeseng could be ranked in the top 10 of Enyang Hall. It could be seen that this guy got close to him for his bartending skills. Clearly, he liked bartending. "Senior Brother Fury and I are evenly matched," Ji Dong answered with a smile. Ji Yeseng said thoughtfully, not bad, but I'm really curious. You're not even 10 years old, so how can you have such exquisite bartending skills? I heard from Vice President Chen Xiao that not only are your techniques amazing, but your understanding of bartending is also incomparable to that of bartenders who have been immersed in it for decades. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to control the taste of the liquor so perfectly." Ji Dong smiled and said, "No, he's wrong. A bartender should never think about controlling the taste of the liquor. If you do that, no matter how good you are, you're just mixing it mechanically. Only when you put your emotions into it and fill the liquor with your own emotions can you create your own cocktail. If you want to be an excellent bartender, you have to use your heart to feel the difference between each liquor. Once you've really done that, you'll be in a whole new realm. You don't have to make the liquor a part of you. You have to make yourself a part of the liquor. As for technique, that's just a technique. When you're at a high enough level, you'll naturally be able to create the technique that suits you best." Although Ji Dong's words were simple, they reflected his experience after he entered the bartending world. It was because of this unique method that he took the least detours and became the god of wine in his early 30s. It was because of Ji Yeshang's persistence that Ji Dong said what he said. As for whether he could understand it or not, that was up to Ji Yeseng. Ji Yeseng stood there in a daze, no longer following Ji Dong. Ji Dong's words kept echoing in his mind. He had always been a very perceptive person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to make it to the top 10 of the Enyang school at the age of 20. At this moment, he had vaguely grasped the essence of bartending, and the expression on his face became very interesting. He entered the Enyang school through the token, and as soon as he stepped in, he ran into Fury. "My little junior, where have you been? I've been looking for you all day." The Thunder Monarch heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Ji Dong. Ji Dong laughed in spite of himself and said, "Senior brother, how can I lose such a big living person? Didn't we just come back? I went out for a walk. Why are you looking for me so urgently?" Fury put his arm around Ji Dong's shoulders and walked inside. He said, "I'm not the one looking for you. It's Teacher. This time, Teacher is extremely satisfied with you. Not only the preliminary exam, but he also heard about what you said yesterday when you talked back to Teacher's wife. Today, Teacher has already been excited for the whole day. He is extremely proud of himself. Early in the morning, he shouted for me to look for my precious disciple. He has never called me that before." Ji Dong smiled bitterly and said, "It seems like the relationship between teacher and mistress is very subtle." Fury nodded and whispered into Ji Dong's ear, "This old couple has been in love and fighting for their whole lives. Teacher has always been stubborn, but he's been suppressed by mistress for close to 100 years. You talked back to mistress for him this time, which made him proud. How can he not be happy?" Fury brought Ji Dong to the 5th level of the Yin school. Ji Dong didn't have the authority to come here yet. As for the 6th level, which was the deepest level, Fury couldn't enter easily. He couldn't bring anyone in either. He asked Ji Dong to wait for a while and immediately went to inform Zhurong. Not long after, Fury and Zhurong returned together. To Ji Dong's surprise, they weren't the only ones who had come. The Tai Yin Zhurong, who was dressed in an extremely neat blue palace dress, had also come with them. Yin Zhurong's attire wasn't any different from yesterday. He was still holding the extremely heavy scepter in his hand, but the expression on his face had changed a lot. His face was filled with unwillingness and even a bit of resentment. Compared to Yin Zhurong, Zhurong was the exact opposite. He walked with his head held high. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was arrogant. That proud look on his face made him look like a general who had just won a battle. Looking at the couple, Ji Dong couldn't help but find it funny. He felt that teacher and mistress were like children who let their emotions affect their decisions. However, he was also very clear that this didn't mean that the relationship between Zhurong and his wife wasn't good. On the contrary, they had helped each other for close to 100 years. Who could compare to their relationship? Teacher, mistress. Ji Dong stepped forward and saluted. Zhurong laughed and took 2 steps forward. He put one hand on Ji Dong's shoulder and said proudly, "Did you hear that, old woman? My precious disciple calls me teacher. You are his wife. In terms of cultivation, you have more than 10 years more than me. You are indeed a little stronger than me. However, in terms of choosing disciples, you are far behind. No matter how powerful you are, your ability can't be passed on. In a few years, when my 2 disciples grow a little more, everyone in the world will know that they are my Zhurong's disciples." Yin Zhurong curled his lips and said, "Look at your face. You have lived for 100 years, but you still don't know what calmness is, right? Little Dong Dong was taught by you? How many days has he been in the academy? I have never heard of you teaching him any skills or cultivation methods. He is a genius. As for you, this cheap teacher, didn't you rush over and insist on taking him as your disciple? Don't flatter yourself. This is also because I wasn't in the academy at that time. Otherwise, it wouldn't have anything to do with you. Don't forget, little Dong Dong has the fire element." Zhurong said angrily, "You are talking nonsense. I haven't had the time to teach him yet. This time, when he comes back from the preliminary exam, I'm going to teach him all my skills. Do you dare to say that my skills are not good? They are inherited by my teacher, your brother." Yin Zhurong walked to the other side of Ji Dong and said, "Damn old man, if you teach little Dong Dong, it will only lead him astray. How many super ultimate skills can you use? How can you teach your disciple? Little Dong Dong, such a piece of gold and unpolished jade, will be destroyed by you. Little Dong Dong, you should worship me as your teacher. In less than 10 years, I will let you catch up with your little Rue. How about that?" Looking at the Zhurong couple, Ji Dong couldn't help but be speechless. He really didn't know how to answer. However, the feeling of the Zhurong couple arguing made his heart fill with warmth. He couldn't help but think if one day he could also be like the flaming bar, then he would die without regrets. Chapter 83. Ahem. Fury coughed twice and reminded Zhurong in a low voice, "Teacher, didn't you say that you were going to start teaching little brother?" Zhurong slapped his forehead and said, Yes, you see, because of this old woman's interference, I even forgot about my business. Old woman, you can go now. I'm going to teach my disciple." Yin Zhurong slowly walked to the side, pulled a chair in Fury's room, and sat down. "I have nothing to do. I have to supervise you, in case you misguide little Dong Dong." Although Zhurong and Yin Zhurong had quarreled for a lifetime, fundamentally speaking, he was still very henpecked. Looking at Yin Zhurong's calm appearance, he shook his head helplessly, let go of Ji Dong's hand, and said, "Ji Dong, I have heard about the process of your preliminary test from your senior brother. Your performance was beyond my expectations. Most importantly, you have gained the approval of our fire element divine beast, Vermilion Bird. Speaking of this, he deliberately glanced at his wife and proudly puffed out his chest. I heard from your senior brother that your magic power has now reached level 30. In that case, you should first pass the test of 3 championships. Then I can teach you all kinds of magic skills. Jidong asked, right here with senior brother? Zhu Rong took the lead and said, your senior brother's place is quite quiet. Let's do it here. You can focus on breaking through, don't have any distracting thoughts, and don't worry about anything with me and your teacher's wife protecting you. There won't be any problems. Yes, Jidong agreed. The process of returning from Vermilion Bird's place was not as urgent as when he went. In addition, during the time when he was resting in Vermilion Bird's cave, he absorbed part of the energy from the Flaming Bar's Red Lotus. The dual attribute magic power in the yin and yang whirlpool had already swelled to the point that he felt very uncomfortable. Even if Zhu Rong didn't find him, he would definitely break through to 3 championships in a short period of time. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Jidong's heart gradually calmed down. The only distracting thought in his mind was the flaming bar, but it was also when he was thinking about the flaming bar that he could easily enter a meditative state. His mind sank into his mind, guarding the yin and yang whirlpool, and the magical power in his body began to flow quickly. Ji was wearing the twin radiance of sun and moon gloves that Zhu Lao gave him. There was an advantage in the process of cultivation. Whether it was the 3rd or 4th fire elements, when he absorbed them into his body through the gloves, they had already been compressed once. This made it much easier to compress them again in his body, and the speed of magical power absorption would naturally increase. Zhu Rong's voice sounded in Jidong's ears. From the 1st crown to the 2nd crown is the change of the magic power from gaseous to liquid, symbolizing the compression and condensation of the magic power. The magic power in the liquid state can make your own body have a longer fighting power and release more powerful magic power. From the 2nd crown to the 3rd crown is another concept. The reason why the 3rd crown is called the 2nd biggest bottleneck of a magician's cultivation is the same as condensing the yin and yang crown, because there is an essential difference between the 3rd crown and the 2nd crown. When you reach the 2nd crown, although the magic power turns into liquid state, you are only practicing the magic power that belongs to you. However, when you reach the 3rd crown, it is different. The most important part of breaking through the 3rd crown is to add something else to your magic power, and this is your will or spiritual power. In the process of breaking through, you have to combine your will with your magic power so that every drop of magic power in your body is filled with your own will. In this way, when your magic power is released from your body in the form of a magic skill, it will stimulate the elements of the same attribute in the air to combine with the magic skill you release, so that you can use the power of heaven and earth to launch an attack. Therefore, although the 3rd crown is also a liquid magic power, it is just more viscous than the 2nd crown, but the essence is already a completely different existence. What you need to do now is to try to sink your will into your original yin and yang crown. When your magic power reaches level 30, your magic power will automatically merge with your will. During the whole process, you cannot be distracted for even a little bit. You have to wholeheartedly feel the changes in your magic power. For an ordinary magician, this is already an extremely difficult process, but you're a dual-attributed magician. You want to feel the opposite of yin and yang magic power at the same time. You have to wholeheartedly focus on it. Speaking of cultivation, Zhu Rong's voice turned serious again. His strong tone made every single word deeply imprint in Jidong's mind. Hearing Zhu Rong, Jidong felt that his original yin and yang crown had already been stirred up, and his spirit power seemed to be suppressed by a special power from the outside, which made it easier for him to condense his spirit power than before. With his eyes closed, Zhu Rong naturally couldn't see that at this moment, in the room, Zhu Rong's body was surrounded by a layer of strange magic power. His eyes had already turned completely fiery red, just like the vermilion bird that Jidong had seen before. That strange magic power was colorless and transparent, surrounding Ji-dong's body and forming a magic shield of the five elements, covering his body. Every single change of Ji-dong's body would be transmitted to Zhu Rong's mind through this shield. After this preliminary test, not to mention how much Ji-dong had done for him, Zhu Rong had already completely believed that this little disciple of his was definitely the future hope of the School of Fire. Fury had dominated the Yin-Yang school with his thunder magic power. Although he was born in the School of Fire, his magic power wasn't a proper fire magic power after all. However, Ji-dong was different. He had the Ding and Ding fire, the ultimate fire. He could be said to be a peerless genius that Zhu Rong had never seen before. Yin Xiaorong sat aside and quietly watched. When it really came to an important moment, she would certainly not disturb Zhu Rong. Sensing Zhu Rong's will, Yin Xiaorong couldn't help but show a faint smile on her face. She laughed silently in her heart. This old man, it's just 3 rounds. Does he need to be so serious? Back then, when little Rue broke into 6 rounds, he was just like this, wasn't he? He didn't even treat his own grandson as well as little Dong Dong. Listening to Zhu Rong's teaching, Ji-dong condensed his will and slowly sank into his chest, directly entering the original Yin and Yang crown. At this moment, in his perception, he felt like he had entered the center of a whirlpool. Golden and black lights had been sparkling around him. Sensing the power vibration of the extreme dual fire, Ji-dong completely opened his mind. To enemies, the extreme dual fire was powerful enough to frighten any opponent. But to Ji-dong, these 2 types of fire were incomparably close. The fact that he was able to successfully possess 2 ultimate flames was undoubtedly inseparable from the help of the raging flames. More importantly, his proud and aloof personality was somewhat similar to the 2 great sovereigns' arrogance. It was just that compared to the 2 great sovereigns, he was a little less ruthless. Ji-dong didn't sense the so-called difficulty of breaking into 3 rounds at all. He only felt that in his mind, golden and black light spots had started merging quickly. Sensing their existence, Ji-dong felt like he had gained new friends. As he gained more and more friends, Ji-dong's mind seemed to grow larger and larger as well. He didn't even try to control anything. Instead, he had already immersed himself in that magical world. Yin Xiaorong had been observing her husband's face. Suddenly, she found that her husband's face had started turning weird, as if he had just swallowed a fly. Even a magic power vibration around Ji-dong's body had loosened a bit. Although Yin Xiaorong was more powerful than Zhu Rong, at this moment, Zhu Rong was guarding Ji-dong for breaking into 3 rounds. Because of the magic power, Yin Xiaorong didn't know what was going on. Damn old man, what's wrong with you? Is it very difficult to break into 3 rounds with the dual natures of Yin and Yang? Yin Xiaorong asked confusedly. Her voice was loud, but in this room, only Zhu Rong could hear her. Zhu Rong's face twitched a bit. Then he said, "It's not difficult, it's too easy." I didn't feel that Ji-dong had encountered a bottleneck. His magic power seemed to have naturally merged with his mind. I have never seen anyone break into 3 rounds so smoothly. Yin Xiaorong paused slightly, then said, "But don't be careless. After all, this is the first time we have seen a dual natures magician. Be careful." While the husband and wife were talking, suddenly, a layer of hazy white light appeared on Ji-dong's body. At the same time, his dual nature's yin-yang crown had already condensed on top of his beard. 5 dual-colored stars were shining brightly, slowly separated from the crown rings, and slowly rotated around the yin-yang crown. The 5 stars separated from the crown rings, which was a sign of a breakthrough. However, the layer of white light released from Ji-dong's body confused them. They glanced at each other, then both focused their minds on Ji-dong. Yin Xiaorong stood up again, walked to Zhu Rong, and looked at Ji-dong together with her husband. At this time, Ji-dong couldn't feel anything in the outside world. He was completely immersed in the wonderful process of fusing his thoughts and mana. Every bit of his mana was like an open embrace, allowing his thoughts to pour in. The originally liquid mana seemed to have turned into drops of sparkling water droplets in his body. when his thoughts fused with these tiny mana droplets, the water droplets would have an extra layer of sparkling luster, becoming more transparent and clear. Before, Jidong had only used his mind to control his magic power, but now he felt that every single drop of his magic power could be easily controlled by his mind. The yin and yang swirl no longer changed its rotation frequency according to the speed of his magic power output, but could be adjusted by his mind. Even the yin and yang lock seemed to have changed a little. For the first time, Jidong had a feeling that he could completely control every single drop of his magic power. Without a doubt, this feeling was already a qualitative leap. Perhaps the amount of magic power in his body had not increased, but after every drop of magic power had merged with his mind, the overall quality had a huge leap. Jidong could feel that when the ability of his yin and yang swirl circulated outside his body, under the urging of his mind, every drop of magic power was like a small sun, absorbing magic elements of the same attribute from the air and adding them to it. Not only could it speed up the absorption of elements, but at the same time, when he released his magic power, he didn't need to completely rely on his own magic power to support it like before. In other words, when he used the same magic skill in the future, not only would its power increase, but it would also consume less of his own magic power. With this, the difference between a triple crown and a double crown was obvious. In the Earth Spirit Mountains, the reason why Jidong could rely on the power of a double crown to fight against opponents who had won 3 crowns was not because of how strong his magic power was. There are 3 main reasons. The first was the suppression of his attributes. The yin and yang attributes of the ultimate dual fire made it impossible for his opponent to unleash any kind of magic power, so they could only unleash 60 to 70% of their power. The second reason was the magic skill he had obtained from the 2 sovereigns. The magic skill of the Flame Tyrant King was an extremely powerful explosive force. Perhaps the magic skill of this generation of sovereigns would only be released in an instant, but it was also that instant that could very well be an instant kill. It could cause the opponent to collapse in an instant. As for the magic skill of the Dark Flame Devil King, it was an extreme infiltration and erosion. It also had the ability to restrict and weaken the opponent. Under certain circumstances, it was even more terrifying than the magic skill of the Flame Tyrant King. The explosive power of the Flame Tyrant King might be able to withstand it, but once hit by the magic skill of the Dark Flame Devil King's Ding Sea Dark Spirit Fire, the various negative effects would immediately cause the opponent to fall into a disadvantageous situation. For example, whether it was Jidong's Dark Moon Claw or Dark Moon Flame, they both had the effect of restricting the opponent and causing the opponent to be temporarily unable to attack. It was the magic skill of these 2 sovereigns, coupled with the attributes of the ultimate dual fire, that could produce a power that was enough to destroy the opponent the moment they came into contact with each other. This allowed Jidong to usually succeed in one strike. The third reason, and the most important one, was the enemy's contempt for Jidong and Lan Bauer, the suddenness brought about by Jidong's ability, and some luck. Who would have thought that a 2-crown magician could explode with such power? Who would have thought that the power of his attack would be so strong in an instant? And the fire-type middle-aged man in red died the most unjustly. Even the person who killed him, Jidong, did not know how the power of the Dark Flame Devil King was activated. He died in a muddle. If it were not for the combined effect of these 3 reasons, Jidong would have undoubtedly died in that battle. It was the combination of these 3 reasons that exceeded the advantage of a 3-crown magician over a 2-crown magician. That was why Jidong was able to defeat the enemy. It did not mean that the difference between a 2-crown magician and a 3-crown magician was not big. The more he felt the changes around his body, the deeper Jidong's feelings became. He was about to break through to a 3-crown magician. The fusion of magic and will already made him feel that his strength had multiplied. Then, the more powerful 5-crown, 6-crown, and even a powerhouse with an exclusive title like Injarong would be even more powerful. Just as Jidong was immersed in the pleasure of the qualitative change of the ultimate dual fire magic, thinking and comprehending the mystery of the 3-crown magician, his body had already changed again. The change could only be seen from the outside. The layer of white light that originally appeared outside his body was flowing around his body like a liquid, producing a strange change. Chapter 84. When a layer of white light on Ji-dong's body first appeared, it was like a misty fog. But at this moment, this layer of mist seemed to have turned into a substance. It was like water and milk, diffusing on the surface of his skin, shining with a dense light. It was like the outer layer of his body was plated with a layer of liquid jade. This layer of milky white liquid was slightly wriggling on Ji-dong's skin, as if it was a part of his body. "Xiaorong, do you feel it?" Zhurong suddenly asked his wife beside him. Xiaorong nodded and said, "How can I not feel it? The fire elements in the air have been sucked out. He is not absorbing them, but devouring them. What is this layer of white on the surface of his body? I can be sure that this is not any bad magic, but a very magical energy. It seems to have merged with Xiaodong's body. Now, it has appeared because of the magic that he is about to break through to the third crown. The fire elements in the air were all sucked out by it." Fury, who was beside him, said, "This white thing has been wriggling, as if it has a life of its own. I can feel that its own fire element is extremely pure, but it is neither yang fire nor yin fire. What kind of fire is this?" After listening to Fury's words, Xiaorong's mind suddenly flashed. He said in surprise, "Is this the legendary flame of chaos? Old man, do you still remember the flame of chaos that my elder brother mentioned?" Zhurong nodded. The shock in his eyes was even stronger than Xiaorong's. He said, "How can I not remember? Master said that when the world was first formed, the 5 elements were not divided into yin and yang. It was chaos. After the chaos was created, it turned into yin and yang. The yang was above, and the yin was below. Gradually, it created our world. Chaos is the most original power. Could it be that the fusion of Ji-dong's ultimate dual fire turned into the flame of chaos?" Xiaorong shook his head repeatedly and said, "No, this is impossible. How terrifying is the flame of chaos? Even if Big Brother and I perform a super killer combination skill, we can't release it. Big Brother said that once the flame of chaos appears, nothing can rival it. It is an existence that surpasses the super killer skill. Little Dong Dong is only a triple crown. How can he master this kind of power? However, the attribute of a layer of white light on his body is really very close to chaos. There's only one possibility, and that is that when he was helping the vermilion bird to hatch its child, the 2 ultimate fires underwent a certain mutation, and the vermilion bird added fuel to the fire, causing this kind of change. This is still not the chaos fire, but it's very likely that it contains a bit of the origin of chaos that is extremely close to the chaos fire. Even so, it's already extremely impressive. If this layer of white light can be used by Little Dong, once he cultivates to my level of demonic energy in the future, he'll definitely be invincible in the world. If he truly grasps the chaos fire, then he'll be a god." Earth Core Lake. Standing on the platform of the Earth Core Rock, the flaming bar seemed a little absent-minded. Ever since Ji-dong left, she had been standing there without moving an inch, and everything about Ji-dong was always under her gaze. The embryonic form of chaos, with the help of the extreme yin-chi of the solar erosion, combined with the extreme yang demonic energy of the vermilion bird, and then mediated by the yin and yang corona of the ultimate dual fire origin, has actually formed the embryonic form of chaos? Little G moved. Could it be that one day you really have the power to protect me? Since you already have the embryonic form of chaos, how can I let it dissipate with time? Your master's wife only knows that this is the origin of chaos, but she doesn't know that even the vermilion bird's mutated inner armor, hidden in her body, can't keep this trace of the embryonic form of chaos fire, and it will dissipate by itself in no time. Although this embryonic form of chaos has already brought you great benefits, and the yin and yang fires will no longer be in a state of imbalance, it's still not enough. This kind of opportunity may not appear even once in a million years. Let me help you keep this embryonic form and plant this seed in your body." As she spoke, Flaming Bar's eyes suddenly lit up. With her body as the center, an extremely special temperament suddenly bloomed. If Ao and was the will of the two great sovereigns, then the temperament of Flaming Bar would be ethereal. The entire world of the Earth's core lake instantly underwent a huge change, including the magma lake itself. The entire space was instantly divided into two colors. The left side of Flaming Bar's body was blue, and the right side was red. Such a huge fire element of the Bing and Ding dual fire was actually completely separated by Flaming Bar in an instant. Just this move alone had already surpassed the ability of the vermilion bird to instantly fill the world with Bing fire. Blue and red, the Ding and Bing fire changed at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into black and gold. Only the area where Flaming Bar stood was not affected, and her eyes were filled with a devout light. Flaming Bar put her palms together in front of her chest and said, "Great Chaos, it's you who gave me the power to defeat the two great sovereigns. It's you who gave me the power to shake the world. Let me borrow your power to shape the chaos in the world." With a soft chi sound, a white flame quietly jumped on the fingertips of Flaming Bar's hands. Even though that white flame was only an inch tall, it had already become the center of all the extreme flames in the Earth's core lake the moment it appeared. That golden and black flame automatically revolved around Flaming Bar. This white flame was also the true secret of Flaming Bar, the secret of defeating the two great sovereigns. She had immersed herself in the magma of the Earth's core and cultivated for countless years as a red lotus. Even though she had mastered the ultimate power of flames, it was impossible for her to defeat the two great sovereigns who were at the pinnacle of the Yang fire and Yin fire respectively. She was able to unify the Earth's core world, destroy the two proud sovereigns, and restore peace and tranquility to the Earth's core world. She relied on this bit of the origin of all flames, the flame of chaos, which was also the origin of Flaming Bar's life flame. To her, this little white flame was equivalent to the origin of Yin and Yang Corona to Jidong. As long as it was not extinguished, even if the origin of Red Lotus was destroyed, Flaming Bar could still live forever in the Earth's core world. It was also white, but that wisp of white flame was so pure. The white light on Jidong's body was already magical enough, but the wisp of true flame of chaos in Flaming Bar's Flaming Bar was extremely pure. It revolved around the ethereal chi that belonged exclusively to Flaming Bar. It was like a huge whirlpool, quietly devouring the ultimate dual flames in the Earth's core world as its fuel. Before today, Flaming Bar had never thought of passing on her flame of chaos to Jidong. Although his position in her heart was becoming more and more important, the flame of chaos was not something that could be easily passed on. Even Flaming Bar herself would not try to pass it on. Even with the strength of two great lords, they were turned into ashes in the face of the flame of chaos. Their souls did not exist, leaving only a few memories and a little will. If she passed it on to Jidong, it would only bring about the destruction of his body and soul. However, it was different now. Jidong himself had the embryonic form of chaos. His body seemed to have become a container that could carry the flame of chaos. Only when he could truly possess the flame of chaos, this container could always be maintained, nurtured, and nourished to complete this process. Flaming Bar could not remember how many years it took for her to complete this process. She only vaguely remembered that the light and darkness continents were not like this back then. She gently blew on the flame of chaos. A white spark floated up and separated from the main body of the flame of chaos. Instantly, the inch-tall flame of chaos in Flaming Bar dimmed a little. Her body also trembled slightly. All the fire elements in the Earth's core lake were frantically devoured, and the inch-tall flame of chaos gradually returned to normal. "Go!" Flaming Bar gently waved her hand. A piece of red lotus flower petals wrapped around the white spark, and it disappeared quietly. Jidong was completely unaware of what was happening in the outside world. The white spark had always been on the surface of his skin. It did not have any contact with the mana in his body. At that moment, he had figured out why he could fuse mana and his will so easily. As early as when he was facing the frost dragon, Feng Shuang, he had already obtained the recognition of the will of the two great lords. They had the same pride. The ultimate dual flames were the mana inherited by the two great lords. The origin energy that Ji Dong cultivated came from this. Would the mana of the two great lords disagree with his will? Ji Dong's will had long since fused with the wills of the two great lords. When he was trying to break through to the two crowns, he had experienced danger. But this time, breaking through to the three crowns was a piece of cake. It did not take much effort at all. After fusing the wills of the two great lords, he completed the perfect fusion with the ultimate dual flames of yin and yang. The 5 royal stars finally condensed into a cluster of black and gold dual-colored flames. It quietly imprinted itself on the 3rd royal peak, leaving only a faint half of the royal star in the middle of Ji Dong's dual-colored yin and yang crown. After breaking through to the 3rd crown, the final imprint was completed. The moment the imprint of the 3rd crown was completed, the slightly moving white liquid power on the surface of Ji Dong's skin abruptly surged up. Within a blink of an eye, the powerful energy burst into a dazzling light, covering the entire room with a hazy white luster. The white light shrunk as fast as it appeared. Zhu Rong, Yin Xiaorong, and Fury only saw nothing but white light in front of their eyes. In the next moment, the white light had already condensed behind Ji Dong's back and transformed into the shape of a rose finch. At this moment, what they didn't see was that behind Ji Dong's back, a tiny red lotus silently bloomed in the air. A faint white light spot silently spurted out from the petals, instantly merging into Ji Dong's back and disappearing. The outside world couldn't see it, but Ji Dong's own senses were indeed extremely strong. His mind, which had been immersed in the great pleasure of completely merging with his magic power, suddenly froze. Everything that his mind could sense was only white, as if at this moment his mind had become the core of this world. His mind instantly spread out. Although it was only for a short moment, within this short moment, Ji Dong faintly sensed the endless power vibration of elements from that white mind of his. Before, he could only sense 2 types of fire elements, but at this moment, he could sense 10 types of all elements. The white phoenix floating behind Ji Dong's back also froze in the air. Originally, it was just a shadow, but now 2 golden light spots suddenly appeared in its eyes, as if it had come alive. Before Zhu Rong and Fury could see it clearly, the white phoenix had already bumped into Ji Dong's body. In the dense white light, Ji Dong's skin changed dramatically. A thin layer of white armor emerged from under his skin and instantly covered his entire body. Every piece of armor looked like a vermilion bird feather, pure white without a trace of impurity. It carried an aura that only belonged to the primal chaos. In an instant, it covered every part of Ji Dong's body. Even his face was completely covered. It was as if he was wearing a white mask. The clothes he wore on his body instantly turned into nothingness. That thin white armor stuck closely to his skin, and a layer of white light quietly emerged from the armor. Ji Dong's body shape didn't change because of the appearance of this white armor. Clearly, this white armor was extremely thin. However, after this white armor covered Ji Dong's body, in the eyes of Zhu Rong and the other 2 people, Ji Dong had become completely different. At this moment, Ji Dong looked like a flawless piece of jade, without a single flaw. His body, which hadn't fully developed yet, also showed clear and angular muscles, full of power and beauty. In the middle of his chest, one could faintly see a bean-sized, diamond-like light spot sparkling. Seeing that white spot of light, Zhu Rong and the other 2 people were dazed for a short while. From that white spot of light, they seemed to see the end, an indescribable feeling like the end of all powers. At this moment, 2 cloth-tearing noises suddenly came from behind Ji Dong's back. A pair of enormous white wings abruptly spread out. Fred, who had seen the vermilion bird before, immediately realized that the pair of wings on Jidong's back were almost exactly the same as the wings of the vermilion bird, except that they were slightly smaller, and their color wasn't golden red but that magical white. The pair of wings spread simultaneously on Jidong's back. The wingspan of the wings reached an astonishing 4 meters. When the wings slowly shrank, they had already covered the entire back of Jidong. When the wings closed, they even covered his head from the back. Every single feather on those white wings was glowing with that magical white light. This was the change brought to Jidong by the vermilion bird, but not entirely the power of the vermilion bird. The inner armor covered Jidong's body. The phoenix wings stretched, the vermilion bird transformation. The moment the vermilion bird transformation was completed, the inch-long white light that had been rising from the inner armor of the vermilion bird spread out like an explosion. When the white light reached 1 meter away from Jidong's body, it turned colorless, but the pure power still exploded. At this moment, the white light spot in the middle of Jidong's chest, which corresponded to the yin and yang whirlpool, silently rose into the air. White flame, chaos flame. The vermilion bird transformation. This was the change brought to Jidong by the vermilion bird. Chapter 85. Regardless of whether it was the students of the Heavenly STEM Academy who were cultivating or sleeping in their dormitories, the teachers and the disciples of the Yin Yang Hall who were either busy or cultivating, even the board members who were cultivating at the lowest level of the Yin Yang Hall, all of them raised their heads at the same time. The reason was very simple. With the Heavenly STEM Academy as the center and the Central Plains City as the diameter, the 10 different types of magical elements were instantly swept away. All of them fused towards a single point and instantly disappeared. At this moment, all of the magicians in the Central Plains City raised their heads in shock and looked towards the sky. None of them understood what had happened. Why did the 10 different types of elements in the air suddenly disappear without a trace? In the pitch-black night, the air had become unprecedentedly pure. It was so pure that it was terrifying. It was as if this pure air could devour everything, or perhaps this pure air could collapse at any time. Central Plains City, Imperial Palace, Imperial Garden. An elder wearing a golden robe was standing in the Imperial Garden admiring the moon. Suddenly, his pupils instantly dilated as he looked at the bright moonlight in the night sky. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and 2 deep golden rays shot out from his eyes. "What's going on?" A deep voice rang out. That magnetic voice contained an unquestionable majesty. "Reporting to your majesty, it seems that there's a special power that has sucked away all of the magical elements. It's coming from the direction of the Heavenly STEM Academy." In the darkness, a slightly suppressed but extremely respectful voice rang out. "Investigate, yes, your majesty. Wait, forget it. I'll personally ask my grandfather about this." Yes. Doubts appeared in the minds of the yin and yang magician at almost the same time. Most of the magicians couldn't sense the source of this strange phenomenon, but some of the more powerful magicians could sense that the source of this change came from the Heavenly STEM Academy. How could Zhu Rong and Yin Xiaorong not feel it when even the others could sense it? The source of the magical elements that had been instantly sucked away was right in front of their eyes. If they only looked at it with their eyes, perhaps no one would believe that all of the magical elements in the sky above the number 1 main city of the 5-element continent had been sucked away by that extremely tiny trace of white flame. But in reality, all of the magical elements had instantly condensed in that trace of white light in the soybean-sized gem on Jidong's chest after he had completed the vermilion bird transformation. All of the 10 types of elements had become nourishment for it. After that trace of white light had absorbed all of the elemental energy, it gradually dimmed. The dazzling diamond-like crystal on Jidong's chest had also subsequently disappeared. Even Dong himself hadn't felt the existence of that trace of white light. Zhu Rong and Yin Xiaorong glanced at each other. Both of their eyes were filled with indescribable shock. Zhu Rong's voice even trembled a little as he said, "Is it really?" Yin Xiaorong nodded to him with extreme certainty. At this moment, she was no longer in the mood to quarrel with her husband. She said in a deep voice, "Old man, Fury, Remember, later when someone comes to ask, you just say that it was one of the ultimate skills that I have been practicing that produced the previous effect. Don't ever tell anyone else. Also, old man, I have already decided, in less than 2 years, in the holy and evil passage that will open, I will not let Ji-dong participate. This time, we are united. Before Ji-dong breaks through to the 6th crown, I will not allow him to appear in the holy and evil battlefield. Fury didn't quite understand Yin Xiaorong's words, but Zhu Rong and Yin Xiaorong understood each other's thoughts, so he immediately nodded and said, "It's decided then. No matter what happened to Ji-dong, we have to keep this secret." Fury also realized that his teacher and his wife's decision was to protect Ji-dong. Although he didn't know what exactly happened to Ji-dong, judging from the couple's facial expressions, he knew that it must be an extremely powerful change. However, after all, he had only won the 3rd crown and was still far from having the power to protect himself. No matter if it was keeping the secret or Yin Xiaorong's decision to not let Ji-dong participate in the next holy and evil battlefield, it was all to protect him before he grew up, in case Ji-dong died. As the chief disciple of the Yin-Yang school, Fury, who was also known as the Thunder Emperor, had never seen Tai Yin Xiaorong reveal such a solemn expression. The white color flowed away like water, including the pair of huge wings. All of it retreated back into Ji-dong's body and disappeared, leaving him naked. Only the 3 crown of yin-yang on his head was still so dazzling, indicating that Ji-dong had entered a whole new realm. Ji-dong let out a long breath. When he slowly opened his eyes, gold and black, the 2 colors quietly flashed for a moment. Then his eyes returned to calmness. Fury hurriedly took a piece of his clothes and put it on Ji-dong. Only then did Ji-dong realized that his body was naked. He awkwardly put on Fury's clothes and said, Teacher's wife, I succeeded." Yin Xiaorong nodded and said, "You did very well. However, little Dong Dong, there is one thing you must remember. Today is the process of you breaking through to the 3 crown. No matter how you feel, if anyone asks, do not tell them. Do you understand? Little Rue, send little Dong Dong back to his room. Old man, let's go out." Ji-dong looked at Yin Xiaorong with some surprise. Previously, Yin Xiaorong gave him a sense of humor. However, at this moment, Yin Xiaorong's body revealed an unquestionable and special aura. This feeling was something Ji-dong had experienced from the flaming bar before. However, the queen's aura of the flaming bar had a more ethereal and otherworldly aura. Fury pulled Ji-dong, and without waiting for him to put on his clothes, immediately left his room and went upstairs. Just as they left, a series of footsteps came from the deepest 6th floor of the Yin-Yang school. Yin Xiaorong and Zhurong looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Although they usually quarreled fiercely, when something really happened, they were definitely of one mind. After being married for 100 years, how deep was their relationship? There were a total of 8 people who came up from the 6th floor, and there were only 10 people who had the right to stay on the 6th floor of the Yin-Yang school. The other 2 were Zhurong and Yin Xiaorong. Among the 8 people, the one walking in front was the middle-aged man who used to host the board meeting. He was also the only one who looked young and wore a yellow robe. If anyone knew his true identity, they would definitely be shocked. This middle-aged man was called Ji Mingkong. Not only was he one of the 10 board members of the Heavenly Deity Academy, but he was also the current emperor of the Central Empire, who was also his grandson. 60 years ago, he was still the most authoritative person in the Central Empire, the emperor of a generation, because he used to take spiritual medicines like heavenly treasures and had a technique to maintain his youthful appearance. He looked like a man in his 30s. His real age was even higher than Yin Xiaorong's, having exceeded 130 years old. In terms of cultivation, he might not be as good as Yin Xiaorong, but in terms of influence, he was definitely the first in the Heavenly Deity Academy. "Your Highness Tai, Brother Zhu, about what happened just now, were you?" Although Ji Mingxian was much older than Zhurong in terms of age, she was still very polite when addressing them. With Yin Xiaorong around, Elder Shui and Elder Lung, who usually couldn't get along with Zhurong, were much quieter. They only looked at the fire couple in confusion. Yin Xiaorong said calmly, "It's nothing. I was just experimenting with a new ultimate skill. Ultimate skill? The corner of Ji Mingxuan's eyes slightly twitched. She said, then I have to congratulate your Highness Tai. I wonder what kind of ultimate skill it is that can instantly absorb all the magic elements in such a large area. Moreover, it's an all-attribute skill. All-attribute was the key. Generally speaking, magicians of every element could only feel the magic of their own element. They couldn't mobilize the magic of other elements. At this moment, the air was so pure that there wasn't even the slightest bit of magic in it. Either Yin Xiaorong was lying, or she had practiced an extremely powerful magic skill. The scepter in Yin Xiaorong's hand slowly fell to the ground. She coldly swept a glance at Ji Mingxian and said, I don't think there's a need to report what kind of skill I practice to you. Even if your elder brother was here, there's no need for me to tell you. Ji Mingxuan's face immediately revealed a trace of a bitter smile. She said, Your Highness Tai, please don't misunderstand. I don't have any other intentions. I'm just curious. No one was willing to offend an exclusive legend rank powerhouse. Even if it was Ji Mingxian, who had an illustrious status, it was the same. Yin Xiaorong's face was extremely calm. From her expression, there wasn't the slightest bit of change. Even Ji Mingxian was swallowed back, so the other board members didn't dare to ask. Yin Xiaorong said, President, the ultimate skill that I'm researching is still not mature. In a few days, I'll be going to Yin Xiaoyang's place to discuss it with him. It just so happens that I'm asking for leave from you now. Shengguang was the exclusive title of a 9-crown magician of the fire element. The Yin Xiaorong that Yin Xiaorong was talking about was her elder brother, Zhurong's teacher. Ji Mingxian nodded her head. Your Highness Tai, there's no need for this. You can do whatever you want. Yin Xiaorong's gaze swept past Ji Mingxian and fell on his Sire Shui and Sire Lung. She flung the corner of her lips and said, I heard that some people took the opportunity to provoke my old man when I wasn't around. Now, I'm going to tell them that my old man's disciple has already broken through 2 crowns. I'll also teach him together with my old man, so that some people won't gossip about him. Sire Shui's face changed. Big Sister Xiaorong, we're not bullying old Zhu. We're just stating the facts. Yin Xiaorong sneered. Am I talking about you? Why are you in such a hurry? Sire Shui, Sire Lung, I'll invite the 2 of you to try out my newly researched ultimate technique. Aren't you guys interested in it? Let the president take a look. Ji Mingxian awkwardly said, Your Highness Tai's ultimate technique is definitely unprecedented. We're all on the same side, so we can't hurt our relationship. Let's forget about this experiment. Since there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. There's still some matters in the academy that I have to deal with. As he spoke, the president turned around and left. He wouldn't bother with the conflict between the fire and water elements. Sire Shui and Sire Lung's faces turned ugly. But who asked them to be inferior? They could only snort and leave. Zhurong cupped his hands towards the other board members. Xiaorong has always been like this, so please forgive her. We still have matters to attend to, so we'll take our leave first. Watching the Zhurong couple leave, the other board members exchanged a look and helplessly shook their heads. To them, Yin Xiaorong's exclusive title was what they envied the most. Strength meant authority. Otherwise, how could Sire Shui and Sire Lung be so easy to talk to? Fury sent Ji Dong back to his room. Upon returning to his room, Ji Dong immediately changed into his khaki clothes and asked Fury in puzzlement, Senior brother, why do I feel that there's something weird going on between teacher and master's wife? It's as if something happened. Fury helplessly looked at Ji Dong and patted the latter's shoulder. How can I speculate about the matter between teacher and master's wife? Junior brother, how did you feel when you broke through to the Triple Crown? Ji Dong replied, I felt great. The fusion of my mana and has clearly reached another level. But it's a little weird. Why can't I sense the mana in the outside world? According to my ability after breaking through to the Triple Crown, I should be able to make use of the mana in the air. Fury was speechless for a while and thought to himself, that's because you've already drained all the magic power in the air. Because of Yin Xiaorong and Zhu Rong's warning, he didn't tell Ji Dong what had happened to him. Junior brother, You've just broken through to the Triple Crown. Have a good rest. I'll take my leave first. Don't forget Master's wife's words. Don't tell anyone about your breakthrough." Nodding his head, Ji-dong sent Fury out of the room. When he returned, Ji-dong laid on his bed and knitted his brows. Why are teacher and the rest acting so weird today? Could it be that something happened when I broke through to the Triple Crown? At this moment, not only did he not feel tired at all, his whole body was filled with a sense of strength. Even his mind had become exceptionally clear. He could not absorb the magic from the outside world, but he could deeply feel the changes in his body. His abilities in all aspects had increased to a new level. Only the memory imprints of the two kings did not provide him with new skills, probably because the number of times he had learned the skills before was not enough. Bang, bang, bang. As Ji-dong's thoughts ran wild, there was a knock on his door. Could it be that senior brother had returned? Ji-dong jumped off his bed and opened the door. To his surprise, the person who came was not Fury, but Lon Bauer, whose face was a little flushed. "Ji-dong, you're back." Lon Bauer's voice seemed a little shy. Ji-dong was puzzled. "Bauer, what's wrong? What's the matter?" Lon Bauer glanced at Ji-dong. She realized that Ji-dong seemed to have changed. His body seemed to have grown a little taller, and the faint layer of light under his skin no longer seemed out of place. Instead, it seemed to have completely merged with his body. He wasn't very handsome before, but now he seemed to have a special aura. "Ji-dong, do you know about the gathering ball in 3 days?" Chapter 86. A gathering ball? Ji-dong looked at Lon Bauer and nodded. "I saw the notice at the entrance. What's wrong?" Lon Bauer blinked and asked, "Who are you planning to bring along?" Ji-dong scratched his head and said, "I haven't decided yet. There's no point in participating." "You don't want to participate?" Lon Bauer's eyes flashed with disappointment. Ji-dong said, "I can't say for sure now. I'm just not interested." "Bauer, did you come to me just to ask this?" Lon Bauer looked slightly embarrassed. She shook her head and said, "It's nothing. I was just passing by and wanted to say hello to you. I haven't had the chance to properly thank you for your help in the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. I really learned a lot this time." Ji-dong smiled and said, "Didn't I say that we are partners? There's no need to thank me. Furthermore, you helped me a lot. At the last moment, if it wasn't for your help, I wouldn't have been able to defeat that Earth Magician. After all, he was a quadruple champion. The difference in strength was too great." Lon Bauer forced a smile and said, "No matter what, I still have to thank you. If it wasn't for you taking the test with me, I'm afraid my results would be terrible. I won't disturb your rest. I'll go back first." Ji-dong nodded and said, "It's late. You should rest early." As she watched Ji-dong close the door, Lon Bauer gently stepped on the ground and made a face at Ji-dong's door. She thought to herself, "Ji-dong, you idiot. Do you want me to say that I want to be your dance partner? I'm so stupid, so stupid." Although she was unwilling, Lon Bauer did not have the courage to knock on Ji-dong's door again. She left with some unwillingness and disappointment. After closing the door, Ji-dong smiled helplessly. How could he not understand Lon Bauer's hint? He just didn't want Lon Bauer to misunderstand. So he pretended not to understand. He was a man in his 30s. A young lady like Lon Bauer was not someone he admired. In his heart, ever since he had the flaming bar, there was no place for a second woman. At the same time, he didn't want to hurt Lon Bauer, so he kept his distance from her. Lying back on his bed, Ji-dong really wanted to go to the flaming bar. However, he didn't know how the flaming bar would react after what he had said. He was afraid to see the flaming bar. He was afraid that the flaming bar would reject him or say something he couldn't accept. He didn't have the mood to cultivate. He just lay on his bed, tossing and turning. He couldn't fall asleep for a long time. After an unknown amount of time, he finally fell asleep. It had been a long time since he had such a relaxing sleep. Ever since he started cultivating mana, Ji-dong had spent most of his nights cultivating. It was rare for him to have a completely relaxed sleep like this. This sleep allowed his mind and body to completely relax. After he fell asleep, he inhaled and exhaled a faint layer of white air through his mouth and nose. Mana, consciousness, and that bit of origin of chaos fused more deeply with his body with the vermilion bird armor. In this world, Only the flaming bar in the core world could fully understand what level Jidong had reached. On the sixth floor of the Yin school, Zhaorong, are you really going to find teacher? Zhurong asked. Yin Zhaorong nodded and said, right now, we can't be sure if what appeared on little Dong Dong's body is the flame of chaos. Even if it's just a small bit of the origin of chaos, it's still too significant. If it's true, then in the future, little Dong Dong is very likely to become the leader of all the demon masters in the world, a demon emperor. Although my brother hasn't been involved in the affairs of the world for many years, this is related to the rise and fall of the demon masters in the world, and even to the ultimate battle between the light 5 elements continent and the dark 5 elements continent. He will definitely be moved by me and come out of seclusion. Big brother has been in seclusion for 50 years. He must have gained a lot of new understandings. If he can personally guide little Dong Dong, or if he has his support and approval, then no one in the world can threaten little Dong Dong. Zhurong nodded and said, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. If other people know that Jidong might have the flame of chaos, not to mention the dark 5 element continent, even our own people here might not be able to tolerate him. You're right. Only teacher can come out and frighten everyone and protect Jidong's growth. As long as he can reach the same level as Fury and possess the true power of the flame of chaos, he can go anywhere in the world. Yin Zhaorong said, I'll set off now to find Big Brother. Here, you have to let little Dong Dong be as low-key as possible. Don't attract other people's attention. I'll come back as soon as possible. Zhurong said, don't worry, I'll let Jidong train himself in his room. Nothing will happen. When Jidong woke up from his sleep, he only felt that he was in a good mood. The situation where he couldn't sense the magic elements in the outside world last night had disappeared. In his mind, what he could sense was no longer the simple 3rd and 4th fire elements, but had become the core of their fusion. Now that his magic power had reached the level of 3 crowns, it seemed that he didn't need to do anything deliberately anymore. The 2 types of fire elements in the air would automatically gather around his body, allowing him to absorb and digest them. As long as he slightly moved his mind, not only would the magic power in his body surge out, but the magic power in the outside world would also immediately gather towards where he moved his mind. Is this the level of 3 crowns? Jidong was a little confused. According to the theory that Zhurong had taught him, a magic master who had reached the level of 3 crowns should only be able to borrow the power of the natural magic elements to increase the power of his magic skills. But why was it that when he moved his mind, the fire elements in the air were already showing signs of being controlled? Wasn't this the level that only a magic master who had reached the level of 4 crowns should have? Jumping off the bed, he forcefully stretched his body. Jidong only felt all the muscles and meridians in his body stretch and stretch like springs, his bones even more intensely crackling. That feeling of being filled with power even aroused an intense desire to fight. His body that had been baptized by dragon blood, after going through the baptism of magic sublimation, as well as the infiltration of the vermilion bird inner armor and chaotic fire, had become even more durable. Magic was the source of magic master's power, and the body was the foundation of a magic master. Generally speaking, a magic master's body would improve along with the increase of magic power and their own training, but a body like Jidong's would probably only appear in an ordinary spirit master after reaching 6 crowns. Flaming Bar, do you know? I miss you very much. Jidong stood in the middle of the room, silently muttering in his heart, his eyes revealing a resolute light. He had already decided he would go see her now. Running away wasn't a solution. In his heart, the Flaming Bar held such an important position. How could he keep running away? He had to face her sooner or later. Although he couldn't afford to lose, he couldn't not accept the result. In the call, the red lotus engulfed him. Feeling that familiar warmth, Jidong had already started to pray in his heart. The red world once again appeared in front of him. When Jidong's feet landed on the platform of the Earth's core rock, he was surprised to find that the Flaming Bar was sitting cross-legged there and actually seemed to be cultivating. He had known the Flaming Bar for more than 4 years, but this was the first time he saw the Flaming Bar in such a state of cultivation. Pieces of almost transparent red lotus petals wrapped around her body, making her look even more gorgeous. The temperament of an empty valley fairy, an extremely beautiful appearance. When concentrated on one person, that attraction was like the ultimate dual fire to the fire element. Even if one knew that it was like a moth flying into a flame, one couldn't help but imprint her image in one's heart. What's wrong with the flaming bar? Why is she suddenly cultivating? Could it be that she's the same as me and doesn't know how to face it? No, that's not the style of the flaming bar. She's always treated me like a child. He sat down not far from the flaming bar, a little dejected, and fixed his gaze on her. Staring in her eyes, Ji-dong couldn't help but feel a little dazed. The dual radiance of sun and moon gloves automatically absorbed the rich fire element in the Earth's core world and fused it into Ji-dong's body. After his magic power increased to the third crown, the effect of the dual radiance of sun and moon gloves was also further displayed. Just like that, Ji-dong sat quietly for a whole 2 hours, but the flaming bar still showed no signs of ending her cultivation. Ji-dong silently made a cocktail and placed it in front of the flaming bar, then stood up and thought to himself, "Flaming bar, I just hope that you won't be angry with me." When he returned to the Yin-Yang Hall, his mind had already calmed down, and he put away his inner emotions, once again immersing himself in cultivation. He could feel that he was receiving more attention from his teacher, Jerome, and Fury. If they couldn't find him in broad daylight, it would probably bring unnecessary trouble, so he didn't stay in the Earth's core to cultivate. With the increase of his power and the help of the dual radiance of sun and moon, even if he was cultivating in the Yin-Yang Hall, his cultivation speed was already much faster than before. After entering a state of cultivation, Ji-dong was surprised to find that it wasn't because of the dual fire elements that were easier to absorb from the outside world, but because of his origin yin-yang crown. He discovered that the black and gold yin-yang crown on his head, which was originally the same as the yin-yang crown on his head, was different from before. The original yin-yang crown had disappeared, and all that was left was a white dot of light. What's going on? Is this something that should happen after breaking through to the third crown? Ji-dong thought doubtfully. However, neither the flaming bar nor his teacher, Jerome, had told him about this. At the same time, he also discovered that the ultimate dual fire, which had originally been filled with an untamable and proud aura, seemed to have lost their original attributes. The yin-yang swirl that had condensed into a yin-yang swirl surrounded the white dot of light, becoming extremely gentle, even more gentle than the attributes of the ordinary third and fourth fires. Although the white dot of light was small, the ultimate dual fire seemed to be revolving around it like a moon surrounded by stars. In addition, Ji-dong also discovered that when he had cultivated to the second crown, the fire element from the outside world had to pass through the ultimate dual fire to compress the third and fourth fires and remove their impurities before they could merge into the yin-yang swirl. But now it was different. As soon as the fire element from the outside world entered his body, it would turn into the ultimate dual fire and enter the yin-yang swirl. It gave Ji-dong the feeling that when the fire element entered his body, it had already passed through the ultimate dual fire and compressed it, directly eliminating this process in his cultivation. This way, there was no doubt that Ji-dong's cultivation speed had greatly increased. This was only in the Yin-Yang Hall. If he cultivated like this in the Earth's core lake, wouldn't the effects be even better? Being able to reach the third crown realm so quickly was admittedly due to the benefits of saving the vermilion bird egg. But at the same time, if he hadn't cultivated in the Earth's core lake, the dual element Ji-dong wouldn't even have been able to condense the yin-yang crown. As for the fire element that appeared on Ji-dong's body that automatically filtered and compressed it, that wasn't something that could be achieved with his 3 crowns of mana. The reason for this was because of the vermilion bird armor and the bit of primal chaos origin that replaced the origin yin-yang crown. When ordinary fire element was absorbed, it first had to pass through Ji-dong's skin. Naturally, it also had to pass through the vermilion bird armor in Ji-dong's skin. This was how the compression and passing process was completed. The vermilion bird armor wouldn't allow any impurities to enter his body. The reason why the yin-yang swirl could instantly absorb the fire element was because of the primal chaos origin. As one of the sources of the 5 elements in the world, any element related to fire would be instantly attracted by the primal chaos origin without any resistance. Therefore, it was reasonable that the primal chaos origin would instantly assimilate the fire element. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Zhu Rong, who originally planned to teach Ji Dong some magic skills, didn't teach Ji Dong anything because his wife mentioned that she hoped that Zhu Rong could teach Ji Dong. He only let Ji Dong stay in his room and cultivate. However, every day, he would come and check on Ji Dong a few times to check on his progress. In the beginning, Zhu Rong put his palm on Ji Dong's chest to feel the fluctuation of his magic. However, he only used this method once. Fortunately, he withdrew quickly. Otherwise, his magic would have been completely dissolved. How could the aura of the primal chaos allow others to explore it? As soon as Zhu Rong's palm touched Ji Dong's chest, the incomparable suction from the primal chaos origin crazily devoured Zhu Rong's magic. Fortunately, Zhu Rong reacted quickly. In addition, the primal chaos origin had just taken root in Ji Dong's body, so he didn't make a big mistake. Since then, Zhu Rong only routinely asked Ji Dong about his cultivation experience. In fact, Zhu Rong was a little depressed. Although he wasn't a powerhouse with an exclusive title like Yin Zhaorong, like the other directors, his magic power was also as high as 8 crowns. He was a 3rd fire celestial master. However, in the face of his strange little disciple, he now felt that his teaching was somewhat unpredictable. Chapter 87. The yin-yang vortex calmed down under the control of his will. Ji Dong slowly opened his eyes, ending his cultivation for this period of time. The moment he opened his eyes, the entire room seemed to flash for a moment. His eyes flickered with black and gold light respectively, and within these 2 colors, there was a layer of pale white luster. When Ji Dong stood up from the bed, the vision in his eyes had already disappeared. Calculating the time, it was time for dinner. He was currently growing, so his appetite was especially large. If there was anything that Ji Dong was most satisfied with in the yin-yang school, it would be the cafeteria. All kinds of high-nutrition food were changed almost every day, and there was no repetition. Walking out of his room, Ji Dong went to the cafeteria. As soon as he entered, he was a bit dazed. Could it be that he remembered the time wrong? No, his biological clock was very punctual, and he had never missed it before. In the huge cafeteria, there wasn't a single person in sight. There wasn't even any food prepared. It was completely empty. This world also had a watch. Although the principle seemed to be related to magic power, and Ji Dong didn't understand it, the time was very accurate. It showed 24 hours. Compared to his previous life, it was easier to tell the time. Ji Dong looked at the magic power watch hanging in the cafeteria. The time was right. It was dinner time. He shook his head with a bitter smile and muttered to himself, "Is the cafeteria on strike? Am I going to starve? Forget it. I'll just go eat some barbecue. I haven't been out of school for a few days." As he thought about it, Ji Dong turned to walk outside. He hadn't taken a few steps when he ran into someone. "Ji Dong, you're here. I've been looking for you for a long time. Why haven't you come?" The newcomer was none other than Ji Yeshang of the earth element. He grabbed Ji Dong and strode outside. Ji Dong shook his wrist, and magic power surged. Ji Yeshang felt his hand heat up, and he subconsciously loosened his grip. "Senior apprentice brother, why are you in such a hurry? I was just about to ask someone why there's no food in the cafeteria today." Ji Yeshang looked at Ji Dong like he was looking at a monster. He slapped his forehead and said, "Heavens, my little ancestor, didn't you see the notice? Tonight is the day of the party. There's plenty of food there, and the cafeteria naturally won't provide food. Big Brother Fury saw that you weren't here, so he told me to find you. You forgot about it. I really have to hand it to you." Hearing Ji Yeshang say this, Ji Dong remembered that it had indeed been 3 days since he saw the notice. Tonight was the night of the party. However, he really didn't have any plans for the party. He stopped and said, "Senior apprentice brother, I don't have to attend this party, do I? Also, I'm still young. This kind of party doesn't suit me. Jidong was already 15 years old these few days. In the Five Elements continent, one would reach adulthood at 16. He had yet to reach the age of adulthood, but the recent series of unforeseen events made him look much more mature than when he had just arrived at the Heavenly STEM Academy. His height had also reached about 175 meters, and his shoulders were broad. Although he was still on the thin side, his proud temperament coupled with his not-so-handsome face gave him an indescribable attraction. Ji Yesheng chuckled and said, "What's so young about it? When I was your age, I'd already gone through a lot. Go take a look. Big Brother Fury is waiting for you." This is a rare day for us Song Yang Academy students to gather together. Even if you don't plan to find your other half, you still have to eat, right? Go eat something. There's a lot of good food today. The Academy specially bought an ice arowana from the Northern Waters Empire from a large merchant guild. Ice arowana? What's that? Jidong asked curiously. Ji Yesheng chuckled and said, "It said that the ice arowana is a subspecies of a dragon. It's over 3 meters long, and it's incredibly strong in the water. It likes the cold the most, and it's a 5th-grade magical beast. Its meat is extremely tender and delicious, and it also has the smell of the sea. Its fish roe is a rare delicacy, and it's the main course of the day. Let's go have a taste." Jidong was already a bit hungry, and when he heard Ji Yesheng say this, he couldn't help but want to eat. There was nothing wrong with attending a ball. He could leave after eating his fill. Wasn't that good? When he thought of that, he didn't insist and followed Ji Yesheng out of the Yinyang Academy. The location of the ball was very close to the Yinyang Academy. They didn't even need to go to the Earth Department's building. It was an open-air hall on the top floor of the Earth Department's building. Although it had been a while since Jidong had joined the Yinyang Academy, he had spent most of his time cultivating in the Yinyang Academy. This was the first time he had set foot on a higher floor of the Earth Department's building. The Earth Department's building had 5 floors in total, and it was mainly made up of thick yellow and gray colors, representing the Earth and Earth elements. Perhaps it was because the Heavenly STEM Academy was built in the Middle to Upper Empires, or perhaps it was because the Earth Department was revered among the 5 elements. But this building was the grandest out of the 5. Each floor was over 5 meters tall, and the hard granite floor and marble stairs were decorated with gold. It seemed dignified, solemn, and stable as a boulder. Ji Yesheng brought Jidong all the way to the 5th floor. At the last staircase, there were 4 students around 20 years old standing guard. They were all official students who had won twice and were in charge of guarding the door of the open-air ball. From this, it could be seen how respected the students of the Yinyang Academy were. They were all students, but official students had to serve these special class students. Of course, the official students weren't dissatisfied with this. Instead, they felt very honored. Some of the higher-ranked students of the Yinyang Academy were even stronger than most of the teachers in the academy. Why couldn't they serve them? Senior Ji. The 4 official students clearly recognized Ji Yesheng. They bowed to him as soon as they saw him. Ji Yesheng nodded and walked inside with Jidong. One of the official students hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Senior Ji, this is..." Jidong had rarely appeared in public. The only time he had appeared in public was during the sparring session. No wonder these official students didn't recognize him. Ji Yesheng chuckled. "What? You think I'm here to ask about personal matters? This is student number 49 of the Yinyang Academy, Jidong." Jidong's stomach was a bit hungry, so he took out his special medallion and handed it over. When the official students saw how young he was, they couldn't help but reveal envious expressions. After examining his medallion for a bit, they immediately returned it to him. When Ji Yesheng pushed open the door leading to the rooftop, Jidong felt as if the world had suddenly opened up. The night air was fresh and slightly cool. After cultivating for an entire day, he immediately felt his mind clear up. He let out a long breath, and the blood in his body surged. He felt indescribably happy. Walking out the door, he saw a huge auditorium. On the roof of the Earth Element building, the floor was paved with black marble with gold edges. Even though it was on the roof, the decorations were no different from a real auditorium. Long tables and chairs were arranged neatly on both sides, with all sorts of delicacies on them. There were also wide, comfortable sofas in the corners. The entire roof was illuminated by more than 50 glass lanterns, making it seem as if it were daytime. In the center was a large, circular dance floor. On the north side of the auditorium, a professional band was playing melodious music. Looking up at the sky, one would see a sky full of stars. Looking down, one would see nobility and grandeur. This was a wonderful feeling that made one's mind feel at ease. Some of the students of the Enyang Academy Ji Dong recognized, while others he didn't. Today, they had all changed into elegant robes and were chatting in groups of 2 or 3, or simply eating. They were all leisurely and indescribably carefree. In the auditorium, a total of 20 waiters, 10 men and 10 women, were serving all sorts of drinks. Without a doubt, these were the ordinary students who had been chosen to attend the dance. As it turned out, their so-called participation was just a service. Ji Dong's gaze stopped at a huge, semicircular bar on the south side. Behind the bar were 2 huge wine cabinets that held at least 1,000 types of wine. Inside, 3 bartenders were busy mixing drinks. They look familiar, don't they? These are the people Boss Fury found from the Bartenders Guild. I'm also one of the bartenders today. I'll go do my work first. Big Brother Fury is over there. Ji Yeshang pointed at the food. Fury was standing there, munching away. None of the students in the hall who were chatting with each other approached him. Ji Dong watched as Ji Yeshang went to the bar. Looking at the extravagant dance in front of him, he couldn't help but be a little dazed. He thought back to his previous life. Back then, hadn't he often been invited to dance parties like this? There had been parties of even higher standards. He still remembered that he had a rule back then. He would only mix a glass of wine at any dance and invite the most beautiful lady to taste it. Any girl who drank his wine at the dance would become the focus of entertainment gossip after the dance, and would be known as the god of wine's handpicked girl. Time had passed, and now he was no longer the god of wine who had handpicked beauties. He was just a student of the Heavenly STEM Academy on the 5 Elements continent. Memories were a beautiful thing, but that didn't mean that Ji Dong didn't like his current life. He was already very satisfied with having 2 ways of living. Moreover, in this life, he got to know the Flaming Bar. Compared to the Flaming Bar, what were those god of wine's hand-picked girls in his previous life? Ji Dong. A probing voice sounded from the side. Ji Dong turned his head and saw that the person who called him was Lan Bauer. Lan Bauer was exceptionally beautiful today. She wore a purple evening gown that matched the color of her eyes. Her long silver hair was not tied up on top of her head like the other female students of the Enyang Hall. Instead, it was draped over her back, soft and harmonious. She wore a thin layer of makeup, and her eyes were filled with surprise as she looked at Ji Dong. The night breeze blew past Ji Dong's nose, intoxicating him. I thought you really weren't coming. Lan Bauer walked up to Ji Dong and smiled at him. Ji Dong smiled bitterly. I wasn't planning on coming, but the cafeteria isn't open today. If I don't come, I won't have anything to eat. What do you think I should do? Lan Bauer giggled and said, You don't know how many people want to attend this ball. You seem to be very reluctant. The ball has just started. If you're hungry, go eat something. Ji Dong nodded and said, I'll go eat something and then go back. Have fun. As he said that, he walked straight to Fury, who was also eating. Looking at Ji Dong's back and his school uniform that was different from everyone else's, Lan Bauer couldn't help but feel lost. She thought to herself, Ji Dong, why do you always keep such a distance from me? Is it because I'm not beautiful enough? Ji Dong came to Fury's side. Fury laughed and said, Little junior brother, come quickly. This is a rare thing. Eat more. In front of Fury was a huge tray with a 3-meter-long fish. The fish's body was cut open from the middle, and the bones had been removed. The translucent white flesh had been sliced up like flower petals, and the thickness was even. On the side of the plate, there was some soybean-sized fish roe that looked like ice beads. Without a doubt, this was the ice arowana that Ji Yeshang had mentioned. How did this fish look like a dragon? Ji Dong couldn't tell, but he was an expert in wine and food. From the color of the flesh, he could tell that this fish was extremely fresh. It was the best to eat raw. Picking up a plate from the side and putting in the seasoning, Ji Dong stood next to Fury and picked up a piece of fish with a fork. He dipped in the plate and put it in his mouth. Instantly, the taste of the fish mixed with the seasoning melted in his mouth like a sweet spring. The cold and fresh taste of the ocean filled his senses. Even with G-Don's pickiness, he couldn't help but praise, "What a fresh sashimi! The taste is very pure, and there are no impurities at all. Senior brother, you really know how to choose a good place." The others didn't come because they were afraid of you. Fury chuckled and said, "Little junior brother, ever since I met you, I've smiled more often than I have in the past few years. In their eyes, I'm the cold and emotionless Thunder Emperor, so they naturally don't dare to entertain me. This is good too. Let us brothers enjoy this good thing first. It's not like I don't want them to come. To be honest, if it weren't for the fact that I heard that there would be a rare ice arowana at this ball, I wouldn't have come." Hearing him say this, Ji-dong couldn't help but laugh and said, "We are indeed fellow disciples. I also came because of this." These two brothers didn't hold back at all. They ate heartily, choosing the best places to eat. When they ate the fish, it was like a tornado sweeping away the clouds. The freshness of every fish roe in their mouths made even Ji-dong a little gluttonous. Even if the other students were to look in their direction, they would only dare to sneak a peek out of the corner of their eyes. Fortunately, this ice arowana was huge, and no matter how much Ji-dong and Fury ate, they would not be able to finish it. Chapter 88. While Ji-dong and his brother were enjoying the food, a clear and melodious voice resounded in the hall. "Welcome to the open-air ball, everyone. I'm EXIN, and I'm honored to be the host of today's event. I hope that each of you can find your favorite dance partner and have a pleasant night apart from studying and cultivating." EXIN's appearance attracted everyone's attention. Ji-dong and Fury paused their sweeping operation and looked towards the center of the dance floor. Today, EXIN was wearing a long black dress. Her deep black eyes, neat short hair, and bright and beautiful eyes were all perfectly displayed by the dress. Her slender and well-developed body was filled with charm and temptation. Fury pursed his lips and said, "This woman sure has a lot of tricks up her sleeves." Ji-dong looked at his senior brother doubtfully. Fury said in a low voice, "Junior, you have to be careful of any water element disciples. Not all of them are as innocent as Bao. EXIN used to be my girlfriend. She tried to convince me to work with them. After all, my lightning element is a mutation. After that, I broke up with her. However, she's pretty good in bed. Now that she's together with Yi Feng, although they don't dare to do anything openly, they've been secretly contacting other Yin Yanghal disciples. It's just that they don't dare to confront me directly because of their strength." On the dance floor, EXIN smiled and said, "The open-air ball officially begins now. Since this is a ball for the disciples of our Tsong Yang Hall, shouldn't the first song be performed by the first seat of our Yin Yang Hall, Senior Brother Thunder Emperor?" As soon as she said that, everyone's attention was focused on Fury. Cheers rang out. Normally, these people would avoid Fury like the plague. However, it was a ball after all, and with EXIN taking the lead, they naturally relaxed. Fury glanced at EXIN indifferently. Although it was just a simple glance, it made EXIN's heart tremble slightly. It was as if an electric current had pierced through her gaze. Putting down the plate in his hand, Fury strode onto the dance floor. Compared to Ji-dong, he looked more like he was attending a ball. At least he was wearing a blue suit. Even though it was a ball, when his 2-meter-tall body stepped onto the dance floor, he still brought a strong sense of oppression to most of the people present. The cheers also stopped. Although she was mentally prepared, EXIN could not help but reveal a trace of panic when she saw Thunder Emperor Fury walking towards her. She forced herself to remain calm. Fury walked in front of her with a teasing look in his eyes. He gestured and said, "Since everyone hopes that I'll dance for the first song, how about junior sister EXIN dance with me?" EXIN was stunned. She knew that Fury had not brought a dance partner. She had wanted to embarrass the Thunder Emperor, but she had not expected Fury to directly invite her. The gazes of the top 20 students in the Yin Yang Hall could not help but turn strange. Most of them knew that EXIN had once followed the Thunder Emperor, so they naturally knew about the entanglement between the two of them. EXIN revealed a troubled expression. However, She really did not dare to reject Fury at the moment. No one present would dare to embarrass the Thunder Emperor like that. She instinctively turned her head to look to the side. There was a young man in a golden suit staring at Fury with a gloomy expression. He seemed to be about the same age as Fury, but his aura was much gloomier. There was a significant difference compared to Fury's domineering and straightforward aura. Fury's expression darkened. What? Junior sister Yi Xin, are you not willing to give me face? As the saying goes, a night as husband and wife means 100 days of love. Come to think of it, we've been together for at least a few hundred nights. You. Hearing Fury's words, Yi Xion's face instantly turned pale. She had not expected Fury to be so overbearing in such an occasion. Fury, don't go too far. The young man in a golden suit strode forward and came to Yi Xion's side, glaring at Fury. The Thunder Emperor curled his lips coldly. Ji Yifeng, are you challenging me? Yi Xian hurriedly grabbed Ji Yifeng's hand and said to Fury, I'm really sorry, Senior Brother Fury. I'm Yifeng's dance partner today, so I can't dance with you. She had also thrown caution to the wind. She knew that she would really have to shed all pretense of cordiality with the Thunder Emperor today. What they did not expect was that Fury did not get angry. Instead, he laughed with some disdain. Hioheim said to Yifeng, since you don't dare to challenge me, then don't cause trouble behind my back. There's still more than a year before the Saint Evil battlefield. I'd really like to see how you'll perform there. Hearing Fury's words, Ji Yifeng and Yi Xion's expressions changed at the same time. Yi Xion said anxiously, Thunder Emperor, you dare to take revenge? Fury stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the vast starry sky. There's nothing in this world that I don't dare to do. Yi Xion, I don't care whose dance partner you're. Today, I'll dance with you. Ji Yifeng's expression gradually calmed down. He said indifferently, Yi Xion, since Senior Brother Thunder Emperor has taken a liking to us, why don't you dance with him? As he spoke, he slowly stepped back as if nothing had happened. Yi Xion was stunned for a moment. She could not help but reveal a trace of humiliation in her eyes. Fury was also looking at her. His mocking and domineering gaze seemed to be saying, this is your man. You don't even dare to protect your own woman. Is this your choice? Yi Xion's face was a little pale. However, to Fury's surprise, she did not leave in shame. Instead, she took the initiative to put a hand on Fury's shoulder and said to the band, let's play. As the melodious music rang out, Yi Xion's slender and delicate body slid down onto the dance floor under the guidance of the burly Thunder Emperor. All the Yinyang Hall disciples present were very quiet at this moment. Everyone knew that the Thunder Emperor had used an overwhelming advantage to make Ji Yifeng and Yi Xion's side submit completely. The Thunder Emperor was still the Thunder Emperor that no one in the Heavenly STEM Academy dared to oppose. Fury's dance moves were really not flattering. His body was too strong. From his body, one could only sense strength. It was definitely not elegant. Yi Xion's slender figure was like a toy in his arms. Coupled with the faint sadness in her eyes, it did not give off any sense of beauty. Ji Dong stood in front of the ice frost arowana, as if he did not hear or see anything. He continued to eat his delicacy. Not only was the ice frost arowana delicious, but it also brought with it an indescribable sense of comfort after entering the stomach. It was clearly extremely nourishing, especially the fish roe, which could strengthen one's foundation. Big Brother Ji Dong. An excited voice sounded, accompanied by a delicate voice. Lung Yu ran over. Even she was wearing a cute little dress today. She bounced over to Ji Dong's side. Lung Yu, come and eat some too. Looking at this little girl, Ji Dong could not help but smile. He rubbed her head and pointed to the ice frost arowana beside him. Lung Yu stuck out her tongue and said, I don't dare to eat. Big Sister Yi Xin said that before Senior Brother Fury finishes eating, he won't let us come over to eat. I came over to greet you while they were dancing. Ji Dong laughed and said, it's all right, eat some. Senior Brother Fury won't blame you. Lung Yu giggled and said, Big Brother Ji Dong, you're really a good person. It's a pity that Lung Yu is too young and has not learned how to dance. Otherwise, Lung Yu would definitely be your dance partner. Jidong laughed and said, "It's all right, you'll grow up one day. When you do, big brother Jidong will definitely dance with you once, okay?" "Okay." Lung Yu clapped her hands and stole a glance at Fury and Yi Xin who were dancing on the dance floor. She then stood beside Jidong and took a plate of sashimi and said, "Big brother Jidong, I'm going over there to eat. Who's your dance partner today?" Jidong shook his head and said, "I don't have a dance partner. I'm only here to eat something." Lung Yu blinked and said, "But senior brothers and sisters said that everyone should have their own dance partner. Isn't it very pitiful to not have a dance partner?" At this point, she suddenly lowered her voice and said, "Big brother Jidong, big sister Bao is actually quite nice. Why don't you invite her to dance with you?" Jidong gently shook his head and said, "Did Bao ask you to tell me?" Lung Yu shook her head and said mysteriously, "I saw big sister Bao always peeking in your direction. She has already rejected many people's invitations and only looks at you. I believe that if big brother Jidong invites her to dance with you, she will definitely agree." Jidong sighed in his heart. "Bao, did I really cause you to misunderstand something? I really can't dance with you. Otherwise, she will only misunderstand even more." At that moment, a somewhat contemptuous voice called out, "Yu, hurry up and come back with me. He is Thunder Emperor's junior brother. We can't get close to him. He's so young. Why would he need a dance partner? What kind of feelings does he have?" Jidong looked over coldly and saw a woman in a purple dress walk over and hold Lung Yu's hand. Obviously, this girl was also from the Gue Water Division. In Jidong's impression, she often hung out with Yi Xin. Obviously, because of his senior brother's domineering attitude towards Yi Xin, she was venting her anger on him. Lung Yu argued, "Big sister Shui, it's not like that. Big brother Jidong is a very good person. Don't talk about him like that. Big brother Jidong, let me introduce you. This big sister Shui Ling is also our Gue Water Division senior sister, our Enyang Hall Special number 39. Shui Ling took Lung Yu's little hand and said, Yu, why are you saying this to him? I have no interest in meeting some little brat." Jidong smiled coldly and said, "I also have no interest in meeting some women with figures like washboards." "What did you say?" Shui Ling was furious. She was a good friend of Yi Xin's, and just now, Fury had mercilessly attacked Yi Xin without giving her any face. In her eyes, Jidong was just a child who had just entered the Enyang Hall, yet he dared to act as arrogant as Fury. In all fairness, Shui Ling's figure was quite good and her appearance was above average, but some of the places that should have been protruding were slightly flattened. This was the greatest pain in her heart. So how could she bear being exposed by Jidong? A noble occasion requires noble words. Please keep your voice down. Jidong still wore an indifferent expression, simply turning around and continuing to eat his ice arowana, completely ignoring Shui Ling. Shui Ling really wanted to lash out at this young boy in front of her, but remembering that he was Thunder Emperor Fury's junior brother, she didn't dare. Facing the Thunder Emperor, even the second-ranked Ji Feng and third-ranked Yi Xin of the Enyang Hall had to retreat, let alone a lower-ranked disciple like her. "Your mouth is just as stinky as your senior brother's. No wonder you don't have a dance partner. There will never be a woman who likes people like you." Spitting out these harsh words, Shui Ling turned around and was about to leave, but at that moment, she suddenly noticed that everyone in her line of sight was staring towards the entrance of the open-air auditorium as if they had been possessed. It was also at that moment that the perfect sound of nature rang out. "Who says he doesn't have a dance partner? I'll be his dance partner." The music suddenly stopped, and the originally noisy ball became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. It was as if even the stars in the night sky had lost their splendor. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the entrance of the ball. Even Fury, the Thunder Emperor, could not help but narrow his eyes as he released Yi Xin, who was in his arms. Pa! A crisp cracking sound tore through this brief silence as the plate in Jidong's hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. His whole body also fell into a daze as he muttered to himself, "Are my eyes playing tricks on me? How is this possible?" All of this was because there was one more person at the entrance of the ball, a stunning woman who looked like a dancing flame spirit. Her fiery red dress dragged all the way to the ground, covering all of her skin except for her hands and face. Although it looked somewhat conservative on her, it was just right for her. Her hands were overlapped in front of her, and her slender, round, delicate, and crystal-clear fingers seemed to be able to shake a person's soul. Her long, fiery red hair flowed down her back, and her impeccably perfect face gave off the feeling of an orchid in an empty valley. Her big black eyes were covered by thick, slender eyelashes and a gentle smile, and her golden ratio figure was so perfect that even the most demanding sculptor would not be able to find a flaw in it. Yes, she had come. In Jidong's heart, the perfect goddess, the ruler of the core world, the incarnation of the earth fire red lotus had arrived. Besides her, who else could have such a beautiful voice? Besides her, who else could attract everyone's attention the moment she arrived? Even the musicians forgot to perform. Jidong felt as if something was stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say a word. He looked at her and felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest. Under everyone's gaze, he walked up to her step by step and said, "Flaming Bar, why? Why are you here?" Flaming Bar chuckled and instantly lit up the entire roof of the earth element teaching block. He said, "I was afraid that you would be snatched away by someone else. Tonight, your dance partner can only be me." Chapter 89. Tonight, your dance partner can only be me. It was a simple sentence, but it made all the pores on Jidong's body open up, and an indescribable emotion spread through his body. For the first time, he thanked Ji Yeshang from the bottom of his heart. If it weren't for Ji Yeshang, he wouldn't have come to this ball, nor would he have heard the beautiful sounds of the flaming bar. At this moment, Jidong had no other thoughts in his mind. It was as if this ball was only for him. At the same time, he regretted not wearing a formal attire. How he wished that he could match the flaming bar. At this moment, all the strength in his body turned into courage. Taking a deep breath, Jidong seemed to grow taller. He took a step back, placed his right hand on his chest, and bowed slightly. He said to the flaming bar with the most standard aristocratic etiquette, "Beautiful lady, may I have a dance with you?" In his previous life, Jidong had studied Western aristocratic etiquette in France, and he had learned it from an ancient aristocratic family. At this moment, he seemed to have become a completely different person. He no longer looked like a teenager. His outstanding temperament, gentle smile, and every drop of it were extremely perfect. As he placed his right hand on his chest in front of the flaming bar, a dazzling flame seemed to dance in Jidong's eyes. Even though this body of his was only 15 years old, the memories of dancing in his previous life were still there. The desire and excitement in his heart had already reached its peak. At this moment, in his eyes and heart, there was no one else present, only this fiery, elf-like woman in front of him. The flaming bar smiled gently. In that instant, the stars in the sky seemed to completely dim. In everyone's eyes, there was only her peerlessly perfect smile. Her tender fingers gently touched Jidong's palm, and under his guidance, she slid down to the dance floor. There was no light from the stars or the moon, only the fiery red figure and the arrogant young man were the focus of the world. The musicians started to play again because of their entrance. The soft music danced in the air and surrounded them. It also touched the emotions of everyone present. Fury, the Thunder Emperor, walked off the dance floor with Xian in his arms, leaving the huge dance floor for them alone. Jidong quickened his footsteps and took a big step forward. He used this moment to create some distance between them and turn around gracefully. With a slight tremble and disbelief, his left hand wrapped around the flaming bar's soft and slender waist. As he felt the perfect curve from her waist to her buttocks, Jidong's gaze instantly became infatuated. He did not even dare to look at the flaming bar. At this moment, his heart felt like it was about to stop beating. The flaming bar naturally placed her right hand on Jidong's shoulder. The two of them had never been so close to each other before. Her slightly scorching, bewitching breath gently caressed Jidong's face. At the same time, she could feel Jidong's restless and excited heart. A faint blush appeared on her jade-like face. At this moment, she was no longer a serene and noble red lotus. Instead, she was a blossoming red rose that carried a fiery passion. Amidst the melody of the music, Ji Dong took a step to the left. The hand that was wrapped around the flaming bar's waist exerted a little force. Under his lead, the flaming bar, who was almost as tall as him, felt as light as a feather. The two of them slid onto the dance floor and danced lightly and gracefully. The flaming bar was very light and gentle, yet extremely scorching. Hugging her in his arms felt like hugging a ball of flames that could melt him. However, even if his body and soul were to melt, the current Ji Dong would never let go of her. Ji Dong's dance was noble and elegant. Each of his movements was extremely meticulous. The flaming bar's dance was light and graceful. She nestled in his arms and coordinated perfectly under his lead. At this moment, in Ji Dong's heart, the flaming bar had completely surpassed the 1,000-year-old fine wine that he had given his life for in his previous life. Even if he were to die in the next moment, he would not have the slightest bit of regret. It was a kind of pure love that had no other thoughts. It was pure love that came from a heart. Ji Dong's heart also gradually soared along with the dance. Watching them perfectly perform the meaning of beauty on the dance floor, the disciples of the Yin-Yang Hall gradually came back to their senses. Fury, the Thunder Emperor, was the only one who kept his gaze fixed on the flaming bar. His eyes were filled with admiration and envy. Yi Xen, who was still by his side, had already lowered her head. She did not dare to look at the flaming bar because she was afraid that her confidence would never recover. For the first time in her life, she felt ashamed of her inferiority. Ji Yi, who was behind the bar, had his mouth wide open as he stared at the two on the dance floor, dumbfounded. Lan Bauer lowered her head dejectedly. She finally understood why Ji Dong refused to accept her and never responded to her hints. That's right. He already has such a perfect her. Why would he respond to me? The hearts of all the men present had been attracted by the perfect fire spirit, and all the women's faces were also overshadowed by the fire spirit. Not to mention comparing them. Even comparing them to each other seemed to be a blasphemy to that fiery red perfection. The flaming bar exhaled and spoke in a soft voice that only she and Ji Dong could hear. Are you wondering why I'm here? The dance did not stop. Ji Dong nodded dumbly. His mind was still a little blank. He said, I just want to know if I'm dreaming right now. If this is really a dream, I don't want to ever wake up. The flaming bar chuckled and said, Idiot, of course this isn't a dream. This is your reward. Reward? Ji Dong came back to his senses. The flaming bar said with slight annoyance, Have you forgotten? You said that you belong to me. Even if you turn into ashes, you will still have my mark. Since you are my Ji Dong, and you lost your dance partner, because of me, of course I have to reward you. Flaming bar. Ji Dong hugged her boldly and pressed his body closer to hers. It was an indescribable feeling. He stared at the woman in his arms and could not say anything else. Music would always come to an end, and the perfect dance had conquered everyone's hearts at the last note. Applause rang out, and Ji Dong reluctantly slid out of the dance floor with the beautiful woman in his arms. Little fool, aren't you going to let go? I want to drink the wine you mixed. The flaming bar opened her red lips and whispered in Ji Dong's ear. At this moment, Ji Dong's left hand was covered in sweat, but he was still hugging her waist tightly. He let go of his hands helplessly. However, the flaming bar took the initiative to hold his right hand and said, Idiot, I'm your girlfriend at the ball tonight. Girlfriend? Ji Dong's body trembled. He pulled the flaming bar and strode to the bar counter. Thank you, flaming bar. I'm not greedy. Let me make you a glass of wine. I think this will be the first glass of wine I've ever made in my life. Fury's deep and sonorous voice rang out. All right, stop looking. Tai Jia, let's get started. As he spoke, he let go of Xian in his arms and walked towards the ice arowana without any reluctance. It was as though in his eyes, Yi Xen wasn't even comparable to this delicacy. Yi Xian's heart and body were trembling. Her confidence and pride had been mercilessly torn apart by fury and the flaming bar. She had always thought that she was the #1 female student in the Yin-Yang school. In the Yin-Yang school, those who were prettier than her had inferior figures. Those who were prettier than her had inferior looks. On top of that, She was ranked third in terms of strength. She was indeed qualified. However, today, her previous man had mercilessly torn apart her self-esteem, and her subsequent man did not even dare to defend himself. Her self-confidence in her own conditions had also been completely shattered the moment raging flames arrived. Yi Xian's face paled and her body swayed. At this moment, Ji Feng, who had been standing nearby, walked over and grabbed her hand. Just as he was about to say something, Yi Xian flung his hand away and said, "Don't touch me." After saying that, Yi Xian turned around and ran out of the ball. Unfortunately, the flaming bar was still the center of attention. No one noticed her leaving. Only Fury raised his head and silently looked in the direction she had left. He took a big bite of the ice arowana. The fork in his hand was already deformed from the grip he had on it. No one knew that Yi Xian was actually his first woman. She was also the only woman in his 29 years of life. Ji Yeshang's gaze met Ji Dong's. Then he stole a glance at the flaming bar. He whispered to Ji Dong, "Brother, you've done a great job keeping this a secret. The flaming bar was so beautiful that most of the men present were unwilling to believe that she and Ji Dong were a couple. Whether it was age, looks, or ability, in their eyes, Ji Dong was far from being worthy of the flaming bar. This was also a big problem that Ji Dong had been struggling with. He didn't dare confess his love to the flaming bar because he didn't think he was worthy of her. "I'm his girlfriend," the flaming bar answered on behalf of Ji Dong. At the same time, she gently squeezed Ji Dong's hand. When Ji Yeshang saw the smile on the flaming bar's face, he couldn't help but be stunned. He hurriedly lowered his head. Hyoheim gave him a thumbs up and said, "Impressive." The flaming bar's admission was like a shot of adrenaline in Ji Dong's heart. He glanced at her, then said to Hyoheim and Night Sorrow, "I want to mix drinks for her. Can you give me a seat?" Ji Yeshang said without hesitation, "Of course." He immediately gave up his seat, not because of his relationship with Fury, but because he truly wanted to see Ji Dong mix drinks again. After hearing a few hints from Ji Dong that day, he had been practicing and feeling hard recently. His understanding of drinks had clearly increased. Even though he was older than Ji Dong, in reality, when it came to mixing drinks, he treated Ji Dong as a teacher. After all, although the Thunder Emperor Fury was good at mixing drinks, his cocktail was only suitable for his unique lightning element. It was something that others couldn't imitate. Ji Dong was different. He relied completely on his techniques and didn't have any magic mixed in. Ji Yeshang knew very well that perhaps the cocktails that the Thunder Emperor made were not inferior to Ji Dong's by much, but when it came to understanding drinks, there was still a certain gap between him and Ji Dong. Ji Dong pulled the flaming bar to the back of the bar and switched positions. He used his left hand to hold the flaming bar's right hand, freeing up his right hand. He washed his palm and fingers with one hand. Ji Yeshang watched closely from the side. He was shocked to find that Ji Dong's palm and fingers were extremely soft. He could even turn at angles that normal people couldn't reach. Normally, it was very difficult to wash one hand clean, but when Ji Dong washed it like this, it looked no different from washing two hands. But why was he only using one hand? Of course, Ji Yeshang didn't understand that Ji Dong was only washing one hand not because he was showing off, but because he couldn't bear to let go of the flaming bar's hand. He didn't know if he would have another chance like this in the future, but now he had to cherish every minute and every second. The flaming bar's hand was soft and warm. Even if he held it for the rest of his life, he would cherish it just the same. Only the flaming bar herself could see through Ji Dong's heart. She allowed Ji Dong to hold her hand. She just stood there with a smile on her face. Her unparalleled beauty was like a foil to Ji Dong. Some people say that women are a man's best decoration. In a way, this was very true. When Ji Dong first arrived at the ball, no one paid attention to him at all. Some people who hadn't seen him in Yin school even thought he was just an official student acting as a waiter. But now, because of the flaming bar, even Ji Dong became the center of attention. Even those who were already dancing looked over from time to time. Lon Bauer didn't know why she slowly walked to the side of the flaming bar, but she realized that the closer she got to the flaming bar, the bigger the gap between them became. When Ji Dong finished washing his hands, Lon Bauer was already standing quietly to the side. The flaming bar naturally saw her and smiled at her kindly. She didn't need to do anything to announce Ji-dong's ownership. She knew very well what kind of place she held in Ji-dong's heart. Right now, she was no longer like the queen of the flaming bar. She was just like a girl standing beside her lover, watching him silently and supporting him. Ji-dong picked up a shaker and turned around. He swept his gaze across the liquor cabinet. After a moment of silence, he chose 2 types of liquor and some ingredients and placed them in front of him. He first put 3 fresh strawberries into the shaker, poured a glass of water from the side, and said to Lon Bauer, who was watching him, "Bauer, can you do me a favor? I need some ice." Lon Bauer had never seen Ji-dong mix drinks before. Her rebellious nature made her want to refuse, but she still took the glass in the end. Purple magic pulsed, and the water in the glass gradually froze. Ji-dong kept watching the quilt in Lon Bauer's hands. When almost half of the water in the glass froze, he took the glass and smiled at Lon Bauer, saying, "Thank you." He poured the ice water into the shaker, then added 2/3 of the citrus vodka, 1/3 of the strawberry wine, a few drops of passion fruit syrup, a few drops of orange juice, and a little sugar. Only then did he cover the shaker and toss it lightly into the air.